And the majority of divorces nowadays, it's just, when the girl just feels like leaving.
That's not true.
Nobody just leaves a f***ing marriage because you just feel like it.
Only 25% of divorces in the United States involve domestic violence.
Right, but again, that's because the woman says, sometimes I'd say I'm wrong. Sometimes I think something is not correct.
Just jump right into it. I want to just, I don't know how many of my audience, I'm sure a lot do, but I kind of want to just introduce you. You've become really successful the past year or two. Kind of, you're friends with Fresh and Fit, right? Those guys are your dogs, so to speak. And you kind of are sympathetic to their kind of views. But you've made a name for yourself just on TikTok and on YouTube. So let me just ask you generally, like, what kind of messages are you sharing on your platform? What kind of important messages is it that you find yourself are about?
I believe in family, so I think that we should have policies that push family. I think that feminism overall was a bad thing. I think that we should be... I think women are happier when we have, a family and kids over a career in the long run. Yeah. Sorry, I'm a little...
But it is weird. It does, and this is going to come up a lot, like how much does Pearl actually believe of what she says, right? Because she says, I think women are much happier when they don't have a career, blah, blah, blah. But she has a career and seems to have chosen it over family. Like if she just wanted to be some trad wife, like I'm not saying it's super easy, right? But you could be, she doesn't seem to for what I know of her dating stuff, she doesn't seem to date the kind of guys that are going to want to have settled down and have a trad wife. And I kind of feel like you get this a lot with some of these red pill women, where it makes you wonder, is it a grift? Or do they just tell themselves that they agree? Like, for example, Melina, like Destiny's wife, whatever, she went on one of these red pill podcasts, I can't remember the name. And there's a woman on there saying, no, and she was like, no, you wouldn't be with him if he wasn't rich. Love doesn't pay the bills, blah, 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 blah. And then it emerges that this woman's fella earns significantly less than she does as well. So it's rubbish. They're like, oh, no woman wants a man who earns less than you. I mean, my husband earns much less than me. But other women... Right? And it's like they're never fully living this lifestyle. Never actually lived this red pill lifestyle, right? They just advocate it for others. Which it makes you think, is it a grift? Or do they just subconsciously know that actually what they promote is shit? No one really wants to live like that.
A little nervous.
It's okay. I understand. So it's more like traditional. You want people to kind of follow a more traditional path in terms of family and gender and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, and you just see the negative outcomes a society has when families fall apart, right? And it's especially hard on the children. Like you see, the kids are more likely to go to prison, they're more likely to drop out of school, they're more likely to be in mental health institutions. So you just see all of the problems that come with, single mother homes. So I just think it's important that we push policies that push family.
So how do you push a policy that promotes family? Like in what way can you force a family to stay together?
Yeah, it's a good question from Ethan, because they say, I think we should have policies that support family, but they often don't say what they mean. So let's see what response is.
In a sense.
Well, I think you first have to get rid of incentives that incentivize women to leave families. So, for example, child support, alimony. I'm not really a fan of those.
Child support. So if a
this is such a silly argument. On two counts. Number one, the women leave marriages for child support. And how much child support do you think you actually get? And with the point is that it's roughly going to be the amount to keep the child, right? So it's like, okay, here's how much the husband earns, here's the lifestyle the child had. Okay, let's make sure that we can he's paying half of the value of the cost of the child. And I think 60-70% of cases, I can't remember the exact figure, I can look it up, but the father doesn't even pay anything. So it's silly on that, number one, that's not that kind of stuff, alimony. It's not making people want to leave, right? Number one. But what's even sillier is if you actually listen to a lot of more intelligent, serious people who are anti-divorce, you listen to someone like Peter Hitchens or these kinds of people who are very religious conservatives who want to who do want to ban divorce or stop divorce. They talk about having tax incentives for marriage couples, having penalties for people divorcing, You know what I mean? If people have children out of wedlock, maybe they should have to, stay together but aren't married. They should have to pay a tax to ensure that, okay, you have a child together, you must get married. All kinds of extra stuff to incentivize being married and staying married. But because the red pill talking point is, look, men, and comes from the MRA thing. Oh, men have to pay alimony, men have to pay child support. Marriage is a nightmare for men, and it's brilliant for women because they can just leave at any time and take all this money and become multimillionaires off the average fellow with his average income, which is nonsense, right? So it's a silly argument about the alimony and the stuff, and it's a silly way to try and encourage people not to divorce. Right? Obviously, I fully support living in a society where people can divorce. Right, but if you wanted to do it, you do it with tax incentives, you do it with laws, you do it with making it more difficult to go through the divorce process. You have you end no fault divorce, so you have you have trial divorce. You say, okay, well, you have to stay married for another year, and we'll see how it goes in a year. These are policies that can keep people in marriages, right?
If there's a divorce,
I think we should ban divorce too. Yeah, I think that should be banned.
Wait, what? Why do you need the other stuff then? We don't need to do the other shit then because it's already illegal. Why would you have alimony? How would you have child support if divorce was illegal? That doesn't matter. Divorce being illegal is crazy, but oppressive.
Okay, well, that's a little bit silly. You have to acknowledge that, right?
Huh.
So banning divorce means that when you decide to get married, you are not allowed by the government to leave your significant other in any situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just think that if you want to leave, you just shouldn't get married. So that's just my opinion.
Right.
It's like the silliest shit I've ever had. See, Paul, this is an argument Paul uses a lot, where it's always your fault. It's like, if you didn't want to get married, like, people grow apart. Like, especially if people get married young. You have people get married at like 23, and then things have completely gone downhill by the time they're 15 years later when they're in their late 30s. They don't like each other anymore. They're at each other's throats, right? And then you want to force them to stay together? It's such a silly argument, right? Especially when you're younger, people make mistakes, people get married. Like, to force people to stay in it, it's ridiculous. Like, I hate the smug thing she does. Well, if you want to do that, you shouldn't have got married in the first place. Okay, you think that's going to encourage people to get married? If you're married, you're in it for life. When you're already in a situation, certainly in England, where people are less religious, where it's much more common now, is couples who are like cohabiting and often have children together but are unmarried, right? I have friends like this, and you see it all the time. And I think there's a lot of data to suggest it was one of the fastest growing relationship types, which is like, you live together, you have kids together, you own a house together, but there's no marriage, right? It's just seen as a piece of paper. Who cares? Right, so isn't that that's what I would do if I'm getting married hopefully in a year or so, but if it was the case that if everything went wrong, if we completely changed, we can never leave, I would just say, well, let's live together, let's own a house together, but let's not get married. So you actually would just see marriage rates fall, because it'd be a really silly, dangerous thing to do to get married.
But like in the real world, that kind of simplistic,
and there's like exceptions to this, but I would just say in general, for most cases, we could talk about exceptions, but like the rule.
Well, the exceptions are the important part, because I've heard you say that.
Yeah, she does that all the time. Sorry, I'm pausing all the time, but she does that a lot, right? She goes, "Oh, you talk about exceptions, but you're not though. A lot of the time you're talking about really common shit, like people get married young, they love each other, super in love at 24, by 34 they hate each other, they can't stand each other anymore, they don't want to be around each other." It's not good for them. Even if they have got kids, it's quite bad for the kids also to stay in that situation, right? But they got all these edge cases. It's so extreme. Like they did that on that whatever podcast that like Destiny. So no, when Pixie's like, well, what if a woman's been having the shit beaten out of her by a husband? This is so crazy. Such an extreme example. It's like, okay, that's like really common, like form of abuse, like shit that happens. A lot of the time you are talking about really common stuff, and they're not edge cases, right?
A lot when you're talking about things, you say, oh, you want to talk about exceptions, but the exceptions is the important part, because those are the people that are going to be affected. I mean, exceptions are going to be a large part of divorces, as you say. I mean, you're talking about 25% maybe or more. Because if you're saying you're not allowed to get divorced, so we're talking about like, what if the relationship is physically abusive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if it's physically, this is the problem though. All right. If it's one-sided physically abusive, okay, fine, divorce. We can allow divorce for those exceptions. But
Okay.
like I've even talked to people that work at like abuse centers, and they say that the majority of abuse is mutual. So it's not just one side's hitting the other, it's like mutual. So
Surely that's not every time.
I think.
Right. Well, first of all,
Yeah, I know.
What do you even mean? Like, they say, oh, most abuse is mutual. I don't think it really is. I think you get a lot of toxic relationships where people can often be horrible to each other. So like, even if you were saying, oh, well, she was slapping her, it's like, don't get me wrong, there are cases of like women doing really bad physical abuse on men, but very often that's the sort of man who wouldn't hit back. Not that I'm saying you ever should. You should never do that, because in those cases they're often very clever as well. And like, if the man ever does do anything back, like they'll immediately turn on the waterworks, make it look like he's done, like it was all him. And so, you know. But that's not the majority of cases. The majority of the cases of physical abuse, it's a man smacking around a woman. The vast majority. Although we don't know that's based on how many reports it's, and maybe there's more men being smacked around than you think.
But it's not healthier either.
Mm-hmm. I just think that the goal should be to keep families together, and that the goal should be to work through it.
I think most people agree with that, right? Because I think we all can look at the stats and say family is important, right? Family is important. Nuclear families is important to like the health of children growing up in general. I think we can all say that. But when you say something like,
the issue with some of that research though is that it doesn't like look at stuff like class. So you look at a lot of stuff and they say, okay, being from a single parent household is really damaging, and you're often looking at households where people is like not necessarily in poverty, but certainly don't have a lot of money. The father's absent, right? We're not talking about divorce. We're talking about, okay, right, divorce, like, your one parent lives 20 minutes away from the other. They see them regularly. It can be traumatic for kids. I need to be careful. I'm not doing too much of my own experience, because like my parents got divorced when I was 7. They were always screaming and shouting at each other before that. It wasn't a healthy environment. Even as a kid, I could kind of be like, oh, that makes sense. My dad lived like walking distance. I could see him whenever I want. They never tried to put me in the middle of it. I could always see my dad. I never felt like my dad wasn't around. So maybe I go too much off my own experience here, but like, I think you need to look at like that data more in depth, because I don't think you're two people, they've got good jobs, they've just like drifted apart, they don't want to be together anymore, they're both going to live close by, they're both going to see the kids, right? It starts to become a lot less bad. It's more like when one parent maybe leaves the other parent for someone else. They don't see the kid anymore. These sorts of things can cause trauma, or very often, somebody just had a kid with out of wedlock, guy wants nothing to do with it. Now there's a string of boyfriends, none of them really like the kid gets neglected. These are the sorts of things that then, that's often happening in like a lot of more like impoverished communities, which is then when these kids start getting into crime, there starts to be a lot of problems, right? So I think you need to be more specific about
divorce should be illegal.
Yeah.
We got to kind of suss that out, because that's a pretty extreme claim. For example, in 2014, family violence was the cause of 25% of divorces. So I don't think it's fair to characterize that as some kind of like super fringe example of why people get divorced.
Well, but you also have to look if there's incentive structures in place where there's a lot of false accusations in family court. And a lot of people don't know this, that family court is actually it's not based off of evidence, it's based off a balance of probabilities. And there are incentive programs that you get, like in the UK, you get a free lawyer if you accuse your husband of abuse. And it's less than 10% of cases are actually like followed through with the police.
Sorry, I don't want to move on.
Wait, do you not, I need to look up, do you not get legal aid in America if like you're being beaten? Like to divorce your husband? That's crazy. I've got to look.
Not quite yet. I want to stick on the topic of not allowing people to divorce. So you're saying that you do want to allow people to divorce? Then you don't really believe that?
No, I would say ban divorce.
Oh, because you just said you would allow an exception in the case of abuse.
I said one-sided abuse exception. Sure.
Okay, so how do you prove the one? So then you don't believe in forced divorce? Or ban divorce.
Fine. Yeah. Ban divorce except for one-sided abuse.
Okay,
I think because it's abuse, Google immediately shows me all the resources in my area, and I'm not scrolling through it for hours. But
for one-sided abuse, and is there going to be a system to kind of how do you prove that that the woman or man
Well,
was on the.
I think
Yeah,
I think you
prove
have to press charges in criminal court, not family court.
So only if your significant other is tried criminally are you allowed to leave the relationship.
Yes.
Tried and found guilty criminally.
Yes. Yes. Otherwise, just stick out of, which is fine if you don't, want to be with someone forever. But I just say stay out of marriage,
Right,
because when you take marriage is supposed to be, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, and for richer or for poorer. It's not supposed to be, when I feel like leaving. And the majority of divorces nowadays, it's just, when the girl just feels like leaving.
That's not true.
So and
this is such nonsense. They look at a lot of the divorces are initiated by women, and go, well, in that case, the explanation for that is clearly that women just, whenever they just feel like leaving, nobody just leaves a fucking marriage because you just feel like it. Everybody else goes, you know what? I get a divorce today. Like, you don't just do that. Nobody does that, right?
Well,
it's just not true.
I've talked to hundreds of women.
That's not. That's just that doesn't prove anything.
And even if you look at when no fault divorce was initiated in the 1970, I think it was initiated. I mean, one of the number one reasons was financial differences and irreconcilable. Sorry, I can't talk. But yeah, I just think
that's a big difference. But also the issue is, in states where in America where you had you could only get divorced if there was fault. A lot of the time, both parties just went and committed adultery, or you said, because adultery's always been a valid reason for divorce. So a lot of time you can just say it, just get a maid to come in. Oh yeah, I'm his best friend. She banged me, so now she banged your best friend. Well, in that case, divorce. Right, just get, well, yeah, I did it. I definitely did it. And the husband saying, oh, I did it. And then friends, yeah, whoa, we had a right all the time. Right? But why not? That's all you have to do. That's what I do. Just go on, mate, just listen, say you guys are having an affair in the court, please. We need a divorce. Right? Like, that's what literally people used to do that.
Like, for the people that don't believe in real marriage, because what is marriage if you can get divorced over damn near anything? It's not marriage anymore. It's something else.
Well, I think the reason for
only somebody who's never had a serious relationship would say shit like that, right? Which Pearl has been in the odd relationship, but she never really had a serious relationship. I don't think she's ever been with somebody where it could have become marriage or might have gone somewhere like that. And I think that's why people are like, oh, then you can just leave on a whim. No, you should only marry somebody if you love them, and if you love somebody and that goes, or it stops, even if it's mutual, you stop loving each other, it's the nicest, most amicable shit in the world. That's fucking sad, and it's hard to deal with, right? It's hard to deal with when relationships end. It's hard, right? Even if you're not married, you know what I mean? I've been in relationships, my last relationship was 10 years. She moved back to Australia. We didn't want to be together. I didn't want to go, so we broke up. It's hard. It's difficult, right? There's no marriage. There's no law shit we had to do, but it's difficult. It worked out for the best, right?
For that, historically, this emphasis on staying married, right? Or even before this no-fault divorce was an option, and it was more difficult for women to get divorced, or men, the abuse of power and the risk for abuse and for people to get stuck in a horrible relationship situation, not just for them, but their kids, right? I mean, obviously having your kids watch their mother get beat up. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes it's going to bleed.
Or the kids get watching their father get beat up. It goes both ways.
I acknowledge that. It goes both ways. So
yeah, that's true.
Both people have a right to, in my opinion, get divorced, because the alternative is one of the partners being stuck and
Do you think that's the
lethal
situation? Do you think that's the majority of cases?
A majority of cases of.
I think the abuse angle is a good angle, but this is actually an issue that I think Ethan is going to run into, just running that angle. Is that firstly, right? Although it is way more cases than people like Pearl want to make out, what they call it, the exceptions, etc. It isn't the majority of divorces, right? The majority of divorces, there probably isn't an abuse situation, right? It's a much higher percentage than these people would admit. But first, right, and so the problem then is Pearl could just go, okay, fine, you know what, if there's abuse, even if it's emotional, fine, they can leave. But, that's the only thing. And any other, then it's just the removal of no-fault divorce, so abuse counts as a fault and you can be divorced. Okay. Well, now you've still got to argue, right? We've still got all the argument to do. The argument, which I think Ethan believes, which I will believe, is that, look, if you're unhappy in a marriage, you might be married to somebody who's lovely. That can happen with my parents, right? They're both really nice people who never abuse each other. They're just, each one of them is exactly the sort of person that would drive the other one mental. So what about situations like that, where like neither would ever abuse the other because they're both really nice people who would never abuse someone, but they also annoy the living shit out of each other, right? What then?
What, divorce?
Of divorce.
25%. 25%.
What?
It's 25% based on statistics.
No, that's not. No, that's not what's in criminal court. It's like less than 10%. It actually followed through in criminal court.
Well, regardless, 10%'s enough, don't you think?
No, I said less than 10% of the abuse cases of the 25%. So that's like.
Journal of Family Violence in 2014 found that approximately 25% of divorces in the United States involve domestic violence.
Right, but again, that's because the woman says that she was, because they're incentive.
Okay, but you're just saying stuff. You're just saying stuff. You don't actually know that to be true.
No, I do.
How?
I do. Like, okay, in the UK, there's a law that you get a free.
It's true. She just say stuff, and a lot of these people just say stuff. I mean, a lot of people on a lot of sides of politics just say stuff. I think there's a big problem with people generally. They just kind of like have their opinions. They don't look anything up, and they just pig-headedly say stuff.
Lawyer, if
how does that prove that women are lying about violence?
Because I'm saying that you can't. Okay. You can't prove it unless they go to criminal court, because criminal court is based off of evidence, where family court is based off of a balance of probability. So it means it's more likely that they did it than didn't do it. It's not innocent until proven guilty.
Right, but they're not going to jail. It's just to let the abused
I mean, you could call it jail when you have a lifetime of not seeing your children. When the whole
could, but it's
community,
not.
I mean, you could. I mean, have you spoken to these men?
Like, okay, most of the time the courts will try and keep like their parents together. I know there was a thing in Britain recently that came out, but not recently, sorry, a while ago, where there was the whole Fathers for Justice debates, and they said, no, actually, like there is actually genuinely, like judges will even in cases where the father's been violent, trying to ensure some access for the father to see the kids, even if it's under supervision, because they try and keep families together, right? This idea that a woman can just take the kids and they'll never be seen again, it doesn't really work like that. The issue is that, I mean, there's always an issue with they can move away and move far away, and it's difficult if they have primary custody, but like it's not the epidemic in most divorces. I think most like most fathers, if they like challenge for like custody or joint custody, like will actually get it. I think the issue is a lot of them don't.
It's like literally their whole community thinks they're an abuser. Now they get to see their kids maybe 3 days a month if they're lucky. A lot of them are put on.
Sure,
a lot of them are put on.
Yeah, right. There's bad outcomes for sure, but horrible. On the whole,
I mean, a lot of men zero themselves out during this.
They what?
Like a lot of men commit suicide during.
I see.
Like, yeah.
Oh, that's horrible. You know,
it's horrible. It's like absolutely terrible. Like I interview these men that are going through this.
Yeah, I'm sure that's happened, but at the same time, you're saying women are lying about violence, and I haven't seen you be able to prove that.
I'm saying that you can't prove it unless you go to criminal court, because family court is based off of evidence.
Right, but they're not going to jail. It's just about the welfare of the kids, and you know, I mean, the people.
It's involved. A crime if you're falsely accusing someone of abuse. And so I'm saying there's no.
How many times do you think people are like falsely accusing people of abuse though? Jesus, come on!
You can't. Silly. They only prove it in less than 10% of cases.
I might speed this up soon. It's going quite slow.
Okay.
In criminal court, because criminal court is based off of evidence. Family court is not.
So let's just say less than 10%. I'll just give you the benefit of the doubt on that. Still seems like enough to give people the option to leave. And this idea that women just leave whenever they want seems a little bit infantile, because people change, right? Especially when people get married young, which does happen. People change. People go through shit. People grow apart. A lot of the men who end up being abusive, you hear, were one way before they got married and one way after you get married. So I don't think it's fair to say you're just leaving whenever you want, or you should just have to stay in this forever. Wouldn't you prefer people get married than never get married? Like, I feel like you would be disturbed if, like, only 5% of couples ever got married.
Mm-hmm. I'd rather people got married and stayed married.
Right.
Wait, what? So wait, hold on, because I was saying it earlier, right? Is she actually saying that she'd genuinely be happier, right? If it was like a really low marriage rate, she would be because like she must maybe she just realised that like not just now. I mean, she's realised that at some point that if you say it's illegal to divorce unless like you literally can prove in a criminal court that you're being beaten, that then the marriage rate's going to plummet, right? That's the consequence of that is the marriage rate will just plummet, and so. I think it's just easy for, well, I prefer people would stay in marriage. Okay, well then, like, what was even your issue? You don't even care if people get married then. That's weird. So what, you don't bother. So if everyone's just like, people just get together, they buy a house, they have kids, they don't worry about, then, right, they don't worry about getting the paper. That's the issue. That's the issue that they've broken the marriage contract.
But that wasn't one of the options.
I actually don't see a point in getting married with the way that marriage is today, to be honest. Yeah, because again, like, what is it? The average marriage is like 8 years. So the average marriage is 8 years and you're done. That's not marriage.
Leaving a marriage due to domestic violence and not pursuing criminal charges. Let's say that a woman's in a marriage and they have no fault marriage divorce. So let's say she doesn't want to charge her husband. She just wants to leave amicably, okay? But in your situation, she's forced to charge him legally to have a police investigation, charge him for domestic violence. Wouldn't that be more damaging to his reputation?
Not if he beat the case, because again, it's based off of evidence. But I mean, I think that why would you want an abusive guy walking free? If he's actually abusive, he should go to jail. Shouldn't we agree on that?
Right, but it's just not that simple again, because like it's just not that simple, abuse cases, because and it's not that simple
unless he's
convict.
Unless he's doing insane abuse where she's got bruises and she keeps getting to the police and they can see it and there's this record of her going to the police, she's got the bruises all over, blah blah blah. Like, it becomes very difficult to prove. It's like, oh, he threw me down the stairs once. I mean, I'm okay now. Like, okay, and he goes, no, I didn't. She's lying. Okay, how'd you prove it? It's kind of like with like the issue with like prosecuting rape and sexual assault, right? Unless like we can see the injuries and we can prove that it's happened, then it kind of just becomes a he said she said, right? And that's kind of the thing with like domestic abuse. Unless she's like in the court, look, I've got all these bruises. Here's the thing. Oh yeah, look, we can see the imprint of his hand on your face, and we know it's definitely him. It becomes very difficult to like actually prosecute
people.
I just don't think that men should be punished without evidence. And I think in family court, it's not based off of evidence. It's based on a balance of probabilities. And so you have a case where men only like they're stuck seeing their kids like 3 days a month, when again, it's not based off of evidence. Like, I've interviewed guys where literally the wife, and I've seen the court documents. It's coming out in my documentary that's coming out in the fall. But the wife was plotting to try to get the guy to hit her.
Right, I'm sure that happens, but and
the wife still got custody.
Right, but that's not a representative case. Again, I mean, for example. You ask why a mom wouldn't want to try a parent. It's more nuanced, right? I mean, you need a more developed take on that, because it's very traumatic for the kids and the family to put their father through a violence case, and especially when the kids are probably going to have to ask to testify, to talk to the police. I mean, I totally understand why a mother or father wouldn't want to put their family through that, don't you?
I mean, I can understand it. Yeah.
Sure. Sure. And I mean, according to...
But unfortunately, her career depends on grifting, and so therefore she's actually never going to acknowledge it.
National statistics on domestic violence, okay? There's 10 million men and women.
Also, has anyone noticed that both of them just seem like they can't be asked? She's just kind of like, yeah. I mean, to be fair, Pearl, he's pretty late for her because she lives in London. So, at least she's got the excuse of being tired, whereas Ethan's kind of like, yeah, do you not think like a woman should be... like able to leave a marriage? And Paul's like, no, not really. It's like, what am I actually watching? I'm watching people kind of mumbling and just boring. Like, oh, it's even wrong. It's interesting. It's fun to watch. I've just noticed that why they both look like they just cannot be asked
each year that are the victim of physical abuse. But in your world, I have a feeling that a lot of these people would be trapped in these marriages, and that's okay.
Ben's running his political streaming. I love you too.
I said in one-sided abuse they could leave. Yes.
Okay.
So no. Yeah.
Okay.
But I do think in order to get custody of your kids, if you're going to accuse the other side of abuse, you should have to prove it.
Do you think what do you think is more harmful to kids, divorce or physical abuse?
Physical abuse.
Okay, you passed that one.
Okay, she looked, but oh god,
So you had to,
wow, she actually really couldn't be asked. Oh, physical abuse. There, is that what you want to hear? Like, neither of them could be asked with any of this.
think about it for a second. But anyway, let's move on from this.
No, I just thought it was kind of a silly question. That was all. But
Okay, that's refreshing. Tell me, what does red pilled mean to you? Because I've heard you use that phrase a lot. You're part of the red pilled community.
yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people. I will say a lot of people have their own definitions of it. So people use it for different things. But I would say it's viewing the world the way it's supposed to be, or like the way it is, not the way you're told it is. So, like, for example, a lot of guys think if they treat a girl nice and give her flowers that, she'll essentially sleep with him. And then a lot of guys find out that's not true. And so then they, came together and realized that. So that's just one thing.
Is that true? Do men really believe that?
No.
But what do you mean?
That if you buy flowers and be nice, she'll sleep with you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that's real.
I think a lot of the reason that a lot of guys get into the red pill, right, is because I think a lot of especially, some of them are young, right, and don't know how to talk to girls and are kind of nerdy and get a bit upset that women reject them. And then I think a lot of others are very good at dealing with rejection, right? I think a lot of others, they try and talk to a couple of girls, things go badly, right, and then they come online, cry about it. But whereas, like, actually, one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give to like an incel or some of these people is learn to deal with rejection, number one. Because if you're ever going to get good at dating, you're ever going to get good at talking to women, at doing this kind of stuff, you're going to have to put up with fucking it up a lot of times. That's how you learn anything. So you get good at anything, you fuck up a few times. Don't do anything weird or creepy. But, right, so I kind of feel like, and I think that's what happens. A lot of them get rejected a couple of times because maybe they don't know how to talk to women. Now, they think simping means being nice, right, which isn't. This is what a lot of these people say, because they get confused like, oh, you should be nice to, women don't like nice guys. No, women don't like simps, right? We like men, I'll carry your bags for you, right? Because that's, right, that's just clear what you want, right? But I like being nice to people. I generally try getting along with people. I can't be bothered having beef with people half the time. So I think over right reasons that leads people to red pill, but I think it's more like getting rejected a couple of times from women and wanting to find out how to not get rejected, right? And then getting upset about it, and then a lot of the time blaming women. You get an ideology, it's not your fault, it's the woman's fault for feminism and all this, it's ruined modern women. Oh, if it weren't for hypergamy, you'd have a beautiful life right now, like, and all this rubbish.
I think that's like a really odd way to describe dating. It's just like men are nice guys and women are.
I just think
it just seems very cartoonish. Like we're talking about real world stuff, and it's just you can't.
I just think men don't expect like women to reproduce more with felons than non-felons. Like I think that's a surprise.
Women reproduce more with felons,
violent
than non-felons.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I mean, like, think about it. Like, Ted Bundy.
Hold on. Well, yeah, what does that mean? So felons who are procreating have more kids in general than non-felons. What does that stat mean?
They have more children with felons than non. It's like I don't remember.
Wait, does that mean? Hold on. Is that just the point of like a lot of guys who are criminals have like a lot of kids? Because firstly, I think when people are in poverty, which is the vast majority of the reasons people end up committing felonies, right, that commit crimes, is that firstly there's an issue of like you don't have a lot to do, so people have a lot of sex. There's not a lot of education about safe sex, so a lot of people get pregnant, right? Secondly, I think you get an issue with a lot of people who are felons are also the sort of people that would get a load of women pregnant and never see the kid, right? Not all of them, right? And of course, there are many complex reasons that lead to people becoming criminals, but right, I think that's kind of the thing. They're the sort of people that will have 7 kids by like 7 different women and not give a shit or see any of them, right? So I think to women, women love felons. What percentage of the population are effing felons? What percentage of the population? Like, if you go to a normal woman, this is it. You go to a normal woman, hey, my mate's just got out of prison. Do you want to just got out of prison? Oh yeah, like violent assault. He did 6 years. Yeah, really, like put the guy really badly in hospital. He's fat. The guy will never be the same again. Do you want to go on a date with him? What? Why don't people know how to read statistics? Why do people think you can get one little factoid, one little datum, and that equals data? Right? Data is the plural of datum. Okay? It doesn't mean I have 7 out of 10, this, that, and the other. No, we need a whole picture. Right? Not to zoom in on one tiny little thing. We go, well, do you know that felons often have more kids? Yeah, because they're probably like less educated about like sex and safe sex and stuff, and B, the sort of people that would just jizz inside a load of women, getting pregnant, never see the kid. Right? And that's the sort of person who's a gangster who's shooting people and murdering and doing all the rest of it. Like, yeah, I could totally see that.
Or if it's violent felons versus non-violent felons, but I just remember violent felons have more children than non-violent felons.
And so there's men who are looking at that and they're pissed.
No, not
because I've never heard that stat in my life.
No, I think just surprised.
Right, because, I've never heard that stat.
Okay.
Yeah, is there a source for that? It just seems kind of an odd stat. Like, what does it prove? Felons have more kids than non-felons.
Well, I think the reasoning is because women want a guy that can, like, protect her, basically.
A felon?
Yeah.
That's a weird.
Why do you think Ted Bundy had like love letters?
Oh, well, that's a whole different weird phenomenon about women being interested. Some weird niche of women involved. All serial killers.
Fucking weirdos. How many women bloody were writing to serial killers? Yeah, there's a lot of Michigan in the world who'll go around and write letters to serial killers in bloody prison. Sure. What percentage of women would want to fuck a serial killer? Mental ones, right, who just spend all day at home writing to lunatics. That's not common. This is the thing with people like Pearl. You go, oh, what about if a woman's being abused? Oh my God, the crazy exceptions you come up with. How do we even come up with these edge cases? And then you're like, and then she's like, well, do you know what about, well, no, women love a violent man. Look at all those women who write to serial killers. The couple of thousand women globally. But
right, it is surprising, but I don't think it's any interesting commentary on the dating scene that serial killers get love letters from freaks. You know what I mean? Richard Ramirez did too. All serial killers do.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, but the point is, it's one, like, it's not the same for women. It's just men.
So what is your point exactly? That what does that prove, that felons have more kids than non-felons?
That a lot of times women pick the bad boys, I mean, that's pretty much it.
Does having more kids
with, a guy that's a violent felon, you don't think? Okay.
No, Paul. I don't think most women want to be with a violent felon. Yeah, again, if you said, hey, this guy's a violent felon, and he's got like 8 kids by 8 different mothers, I'm like, yeah, that tracks. Right, but not because I'm like, oh yeah, because they love a bad boy. You talk to most grown women, oh yeah, they definitely want to like bang some fucking violent murderer. Like, come on, the whole bad boy thing. And don't get me wrong, yeah, there's a rebel aesthetic that a lot of people like, right, that a lot of women like. There's like a little bit of a rebellious streak, but then a lot of guys like the rebellious women. I certainly do, but I think the whole bad boy myth comes from school, right? Because when you're at high school, most of the guys don't have a lot of confidence. Like all of us, like, even the guys that are a little bit more confident around the dudes, they're not that confident with women. Whereas the guy that's like a bit of a dick, that's a bully, that's like, that nobody like, right, that the other guys all hate, he's like, it puts on a front of confidence. And a lot of the girls at school, like teenage girls, they haven't learned to see through, well, this is just a front. He just acts confident, right? He just acts like he owns the place. right? So, you know, that's why he's picking on the other kids. That's why he's doing. So, yeah, at the high school, they date these guys, but most of them learn the fucking lesson, number one. And number two, like, the changes out of high school, the kids, kids make silly decisions, right? The kids make silly decisions. When you're an adult, people tend to want, like, more serious, like, people tend to want a serious person they have a connection with. Not just like, oh, yeah, he told the teacher to go fuck themselves. Oh, he's so edgy and cool. Because every other boy's fucking awkward and nervous. It's like, oh, hi, Sarah. Right? But he's like, yeah, I think, fuck. Right? Then, yeah, I understand why they, at school they're attracted to guys like that. Right? Whereas most women aren't attracted to guys who are like, yeah, I just fucking stabbed someone. Yeah, that's not what most women are attracted to. Right? Not saying there's not women that are attracted to them. It's just not what a normal woman. It's just so crazy.
Yeah, it's just so really.
I'm gonna have to speed this up, or we're gonna be
trying to grapple with it.
I can get it. I can get it in a second.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, we can try to look for it too. I just want to hear what.
Then I can show you where I found it.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, Casey Anthony got love letters apparently. So she was a serial killer, right? Oh, she killed her daughter.
Not serial, just a one-timer.
So Casey Anthony murdered her daughter, and she was getting love letters too. She got letters proposing marriage. Don't you find that surprising?
Yeah, that is surprising.
So in a sense, it's not. It goes both ways, kind of when you look at it holistically.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think it's more so for women pick violent men more than men pick violent women.
Based on what?
I think you can
evidence at all, just made it up.
I would just say I would guess
to making it up.
I would guess that it's more common with women because of that study versus like a fringe case. I would be surprised if women got the same amount of letters, but you know, I could be wrong.
You might be surprised, but do you feel that sometimes you argue from emotion rather than like concrete facts? I find that when you talk about, and I've watched a lot of your videos, you say stuff that I don't think has much of a backing in reality. It's based on feelings, maybe instead of not emotions, but feelings. You say, I feel this to be true. Do you feel you do that a lot or no?
I try. I would say I'm a woman, so sometimes, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Oh, she had to do, she had to do that, because that's the whole argument. Oh, women are emotional based, so she has to get I'm a woman. But even though she's just a grifter who sells out of the women, like I think Pearl. It's not. I don't know how much Pearl believes of what she says. Yeah, because people do a lot of motivated reasonings. If you're getting a lot of money and you're building a career off saying stuff, I could well see that you end up kind of believing on it, but. Again, she doesn't live the life she preaches, so it kind of makes you think, well, like, again, she's a career woman who's, what, like 13, in the 30s and doesn't have kids, like, which is the opposite of what she argues for. So, I totally support that. Great, fine, if that's what you're going to do, right? But she tells other women that they're awful for doing that, or that they're whores, or they're, right? So, I just think she knows red pill guys, a lot of them don't like women, right? And she loves to play into that and grift to them. I'd love to know. I really would love to know with some of these people. Do they know?
Depends.
You know. Hold on. Do you want me to find it or no?
Sure. Yeah. I'll give you a minute. That's totally fine. Okay. So why should I engage in a conversation with you at all? If women are just emotional, shouldn't I be talking to a man about this?
Probably.
Yeah.
Why do you bother to even...
The thing is that the problem is, right, that you think that would be like, oh shit, I got you for Pearl, but it isn't, because she just goes, yeah, you probably should talk to a man, right? Because she just has to. She has to grift to the red pillars, right? Does Pearl hate women? Like, because if she believes what she says, like, I reckon she's got to like kind of just hate women and be like, I'm one of the good ones. Now, I don't necessarily like the term "pick me" that much. Like, it's funny, we can all use it sometimes, but I often feel a little bit like it's like saying, oh, you have this opinion? Okay, well, that's not a typical opinion for someone like you, therefore you're just desperate for the attention of men or other people or whatever. You're just trying to be one of the good ones, right? Rather than dealing with their arguments on the face. But in Pearl's case, I think she just genuinely wants to like the red pill guys to like her to do all that shit and like shits on women and wants to be like, well, I'm one of the good ones. Kind of, but she doesn't even do that. She goes, no, I'm shit and rubbish, stupid bloody woman as well. And it's like, what? What? But you can't push her on that because she'll concede.
Have a platform. Shouldn't you just concede to a man?
Yeah, probably. You know.
So we got to look for a man to replace you. Don't you think?
No, not really.
You don't think? Okay. But you do think women are more emotional.
I gotta find. Hold on.
Go ahead. I'll give you a minute. Sorry, I won't.
Okay, sorry. I'm trying to like talk to you and find it at the same time.
Yeah, I'll give you a minute there. But it's fine too. We can move on. I'll give you a minute, but we don't have to get stuck on it.
Okay.
Yeah, looking up stuff on the fly is hard because I've tried to do that on stream. I'm like, I'm still talking, guys. Still watching the stream. Watching the.
I mean, we can. It's fine. We can move on.
Yeah. It's like analysis. Well, like quite boring content. Boring.
I found it.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, perfect.
Oh, there we go. What's it called? I'll pull it up.
Here. The link, he pulls up the study in this stream, so the link is on here.
Whose stream is it?
It's Rollo's stream.
Rollo Tony Brown.
Yeah. He's great, actually.
I know you're a fan of him. He seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, he's really nice.
I like his headwear.
I like when he rocks out.
Where do I send it to?
You can send it in the Zoom chat.
The Zoom chat, yeah.
Or you can just tell me the name of it and I can pull it up.
Okay. It's in Rollo Tomasi is Offensive and Vile. It's like 7 months ago. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll look into it. So if women are so emotional, do you think it's bad faith in terms of an argument to argue from feelings and to present feelings as facts? Do you think that's a bad faith way to argue or no?
No, I was kind of kidding. I was like,
what were you kidding about?
When, I don't know, whatever you were asking me earlier, you were like,
is Paul high?
They
both sound like I'm not going to carry on with the fucking why is it so subdued memes all night, but Jesus Christ.
Do you think you shouldn't have a platform or like...
Well, right. Yeah. Well, I asked and you said, well, I'm a woman. Of course I'm going to... I asked you, do you feel that you make arguments based on feeling? And you said, yes, I do, because I'm a woman.
Oh, yeah, I was kidding. No, I use facts to back up my arguments. Sometimes I'd say I'm wrong. Sometimes I think something and it's not correct. But I would say most of my opinions, I try to at least have a basis of fact. Yes.
Okay.
Some things you just see in reality, right? I mean, like sometimes you're gonna, yeah. I mean, you can, like some things you just learn from interviewing hundreds of people. You see patterns,
right? But sometimes when you interview people, you interviewing specific people with specific experiences, you're obviously going to run into a bias.
No, I don't think so, because we do street interviews all the time too. So that's like random people on the street.
Okay, fair enough. So there's the red pilled, which are people who see the world for what it is.
If you have a very strong belief and are highly biased, and then have a podcast where you and you just go out on the street and ask people questions, I think that's the same as peer reviewed data. Yes, yeah, that counts, doesn't it? Why did you send it to the Royal Society? Perhaps they'll publish it. Send it to the Royal Psychology Journal, like the what's the APS, the American Journal of Psychology. Send it to that. I'm sure they'll publish it. Some of your clips. Send some of your clips, Pearl.
And then you have blue-pilled people, which I'm assuming is someone like me. I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth. But what does blue-pilled mean?
People that see the world for how they'd like it to be, I guess.
Okay.
I don't talk much about, I guess, like blue pill, but yeah.
Okay, fair enough. We don't have to focus in on that. So I've noticed that one of the primary focuses of your content is kind of the problems facing men and how there's so much unfair societal pressures or norms or expectations on men. Why is it that you're so singularly focused on the troubles of men?
Why am I focused on the troubles of men?
I'm gonna speed this up because this is just nuts.
That's an interesting way to, I guess, phrase my content. I would say I think it's unfortunate what happens to men in divorce court. So that's probably what I talk about the most. Is I think that men should have access to their children.
That's not what you talk about the most. You definitely talk about stuff like pay gap myth. You talk about men want younger girls. You talk about men are just doing what's in their nature. You talk about women who have higher body count are less desirable. I'll be honest. I've watched a lot of your stuff, and the vast majority is not about divorce court. It's about this kind of like dating coach stuff.
No, I wouldn't say I'm a dating coach, but okay.
No, but that realm, you know what I mean? Like, I don't mean you're a dating coach, but like that kind of realm, it seems that you're super focused on. So what is your interest in that? Manosphere. Maybe that's a better term. Manosphere stuff.
What is my interest? I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. So that's what we talk about.
Okay. That's fair. So what is, you say you're anti-feminism. Feminism was basically a mistake. So what is your problem with feminism? Let's start there. That's a good point. Right?
I think that feminism wants equality when it benefits us and not actual equality.
Feminism, and are you going back to the beginning of feminism? Like the whole history of feminism, like women's suffrage and everything?
Yeah. No, I don't.
You don't fuck with women's suffrage?
No.
I know I'm doing it, right? But like, please, everyone's got to agree with me, right? Like, he has to go, do you vote? But then especially lives in the UK, so she can't vote, so...
You don't think women should get the right to vote?
No, I don't.
Okay, so are you serious or are you kidding?
No, I'm serious.
Okay, so women shouldn't have the right to vote.
Yeah.
Why?
No. Because men are signed up for selective service, so they're fined $300,000 if they don't sign up for selective service when they're 18. Do
you think women should be drafted into the army?
I think if we want the same rights, it comes with the same responsibilities.
Do you think women should be drafted into the army?
No.
Okay, so then there's a paradox.
No, but that's my point. I'm saying, like, let's make it fair.
You don't believe? Well, listen, this is your perfect.
I'm saying that if we are going to vote, have the same cost, which is that men are put into selective service and women are not. And if I had to pick between the two, then I would give up the right to vote instead of sign up for selective service.
Okay, so
the thing is, though, actually, in a war, if you had the Second World War, when there were like virtually there was like a couple of pilots, but virtually no women fighting. And the First World War, actually, right? Women like still had to go and work in the factories and make all the arms. In fact, a lot of the reason that Britain and America and stuff won especially Britain won the First World War was because in Germany, half the men go out to fight, half the men are making arms. In Britain, we sent all the men out to fight and stuck all the women in the factories making the weapons. Right? So you put the women in the factories, you put the men on the battlefield was at least the historical idea. Now, to be honest, I don't really care if we have a war and we're like, okay, let's do it equally. Yeah, like the women still have to go and do things. They still have to go to factories. They still have to fight. They still have to contribute to the war effort, right? Like, again, in the Second World War, like the women made huge sacrifices and contributions to the war effort. They made arms. They worked in fucking radar rooms. They did other stuff, right? And this was because back then they weren't going to put women on the front lines in a million years. So, right. Plenty of countries, including I think now America and stuff, do have women on the front lines. So in wars, and most armies are mixed now, even though it's majority men. So, and so secondly, what are the chances realistically going to be called up? Like World War III has to break out before you're going to like be conscripted realistically in the modern world, right? Like you have to have like World War III realistically. So I wouldn't worry about the fact you could hypothetically be called up.
You're saying women should only get the right to vote if they sign up for selective service, but at the same time, you're saying women should not serve in the military. So in your world, women are just going to be disenfranchised because they're not going to be able to sign. They shouldn't serve in the military because they're not as good fighters.
No,
right?
No, I'm saying for me personally, I would not want to sign up for selective service if I had to pick.
So
I would give that up.
You think women should be given the choice if they want to do selective service or not?
I think if we're going to vote, we should have no choice like the men do.
So women should be drafted mandatory into selective service, you believe?
No, that's
okay. But don't you see the law? There's an issue. There's a problem.
I said, if feminists want the right to vote, right, then it should come with the draft. It should come. I mean, it's not called the draft anymore. It's called selective service. Personally,
there's a lot. Firstly, I think that's just in America where you have to sign up for it anyway. And number two, I think if you talk to a lot of feminists, they're like, yeah, women should be in the army, it should be equal. Especially still like Rad from like, yeah, we should make the army equal. Although there's debate because then you get a lot of like very left-wing feminists who are like, no, we should disband the army, not disband the army, but we should, it's not about equality. It's about trying to change the system so it's fair for everybody, right? Because I've heard people say that. I saw Jermaine Greer once saying, well, we're not trying to achieve parity with men, she's a big lefty, because the corporate world's horrible. Like, no one should be in it. We should change the whole system so that it's now fair and no one's in the corporate system, no one's in the blah, 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 right? So, but I think if you poll a lot of feminists, though, mainstream feminists especially, they are going to say, yeah, a woman should go in the army, right? I mean, how long were they fighting for women to be in the fucking army, right? Didn't they only just get allowed on the front lines? That was largely feminists fighting for it.
In Pearl's world, I do not want to be drafted. I do not want to be in selective service.
But I'm asking you, like, in general, in terms of policy, because obviously I think it's safe to say women in general want the right to vote, right? And so then, by your logic, women need to be entered into selective service, right? But you don't think that should happen, or you think that's okay?
Yeah, I'd rather not.
Not you. I mean, in general, the women, because women want to vote. So how do we resolve this issue? Do they get drafted like men?
I mean, I think it's unlikely that women will ever have the right to vote taken away. So I guess moving forward, maybe net taxpayers potentially you could do, but that's a whole nother conversation. But
wait,
no, I think if we're gonna vote, I think that we should have the same responsibility as the men and be enlisted in selective service.
Okay. So you're saying women should also have to sign up for selective service when they turn 18, like men.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, if you're gonna be equal, make it equal.
Okay.
And for me, I don't want to do that. No, thank you. Keep me out of that.
Okay. So I understand that's your.
Yeah, but like, Ethan needs to ask the direct question though. Okay, so you're saying though, if a woman's a feminist and she believes that she should vote, then she should sign up for selective service, yes? Right? You need to like corner her on that.
Preference, but I'm just trying to understand like the policy that in your red pill, we're doing the red pill, we're seeing the world as it is.
No, I wouldn't assign that belief to like red pill. That's not really like a red pill belief. That's just mine.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm just trying to make a point about. So do you think having women in the army would weaken our military?
Yes.
So then probably don't draft women into the army.
Yeah, but then take away the vote with it.
You do have women in the US military, right? It's minority, it's mostly men, but it's like there are women in the US military.
But you're not giving that. That doesn't seem very fair.
To the conversation.
You say, well, you guys are weaker. You guys are going to weaken our military, so we don't want you in the military. But because you're not in the military, you don't get the right to vote. It's a catch-22. You know what I mean? So what do we do about that?
Well, I'll tell you what I think we should do.
Go ahead.
No. I mean, it goes back to, I just think that you have to have some skin in the game. And so it's like, if we're voting for a commander in chief, right? That's the person that decides if we go to war or we don't go to war. And so it's easy to, again, I think that if you're going to vote, you should have the same responsibility as the men. And
how much of what a fucking president or someone like that does is declaring war? Like, yeah, it happens. Fucking like we've had enough wars, but like, what wars are you going to get drafted in? What was it? Oh, well, I'm voting on whether I should go get called up for military service. The last time that happened in America was in Vietnam, and the last time that happened here in Britain was in the Second World War. Right? Oh, actually, that's not true. We had national service after the Second World War. So my granddad did get called up and have to be a fireman in the Navy. No, he had to do something for the Royal Air Force, but in an office. Or he was, I can't remember what he was doing. He was doing something for the Royal Air Force, but the chance of actually getting called up to war nowadays is so low, and it hasn't happened for at least since my granddad was like 18. And even then, that wasn't to war. That was just to go and serve in the Air Force for no reason, because we kept national service after the war, right? It was just like it's just not going to happen. It's such fuck it. I'm not repeating myself. Oh shit.
We're not equal.
Okay, well, just to be fair,
if we're really equal, have the same responsibility. But again, it's equality when it benefits us.
Well, but your logic doesn't even make sense. I mean, you're talking about, first of all, there hasn't been a draft in the United States in 50 years, right? So if there was a draft, maybe we could have this conversation, but it just seems kind of silly. In 50 years, there hasn't been a mandatory draft. It just hasn't happened. So, so why is it a big deal, I guess, about the selective service? But there's not going to be another draft. You know what I mean? There's enough people in the army. I don't think that there's going to be a draft. It's just not going to happen. And with the way technology is going, we're going to have autonomous robot fighters before there's a draft. You know what I mean? So why does it matter? I just don't see the point with the selective service thing.
I just think it's, again, like, women want all the rights without the responsibility.
What other ones?
If you don't think that there's going to be a draft, then equally do what the men do. Men are fined $300,000.
They don't have the option. They don't even have the option right now.
Right. So give them the option.
Okay, let's give them the option.
Make it equal.
Not
the option. It has to be mandatory.
I know, but you're saying like women want the right to vote, but they don't want to enter in selective service. But it's not an option. So how do you know what all women want?
I don't know what all women want.
So then why are you saying things that are generalized all women?
I'm saying, okay, because I'm looking at the policies that have been pushed. I'm saying the policies are not, like, where are the feminists fighting for equality in this situation? Like,
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not that relevant, but also no women in the army is a kind of a byproduct of patriarchy, because women are looked at as that they'd weaken the military, as you pointed out.
No, there are fucking women in the army. Like, it's already happened now when feminists fought for it. For fuck's sake, bro. All of you, like, literally, I'm going to Google it when they're not speaking, right? The number of fucking women in the US Army, right? It's not the majority. It's mostly men. There's still plenty of women, and literally there was a huge battle only a couple of years ago to get women on the front lines, because they could go in 80% of roles, but they couldn't do a combat role unless they were in the Air Force and they were a pilot, which is a small minority, right? And even then, I think it was only certain pilots. There could be a fighter pilot, there could be a bomber, or so. I can't remember the exact rules, but there's not no women in the army. There aren't no women. This needs to be brought up. There are women in the army. Feminists fought for it. Okay, now what? Fuck me.
Is that possible that...
But do people not pay attention to what goes on in the world ever?
It's men driving that policy and not so much women.
I didn't say women drove that policy. I said they don't try to make it equal. It's only equal when it benefits us.
Even if nobody's being actually drafted.
I mean, 50 years isn't, that long of... I mean, who's to say? You don't know, but okay.
50 years? I mean, the last man drafted was like during Vietnam, wasn't it?
Okay, so women make up 16% of the US military. Right, okay, so yeah, again, vast majority men, so you say 84% men. But still, there are women in the army, feminists have been fighting for it. That's true. Well, let's look at the British one as well. So 11.3% of the UK regular forces were female in 2022. Okay, so again, as I said, vast majority of men, but there are women in the army, right? Like feminists fought for it. Feminists fought for the right of women to be on the front lines. Like, okay, minority of the armed forces, 100%. In Britain, it's nearly 90% of men. In America, 84% of men. So, vast majority, 100%. Also, by the way, some countries do have a draft where they draft women. Like in Israel, they draft like men and women. Everybody, regardless of gender, has to go in the army. 18 to 21. You can say, listen, I object to what's going on with the Palestinians, and I'll put you in a post room sending letters or something. Making sure people get a letter from their mum. But so there are countries which do that. There are women in the US Army. There are women in the British Army. So the point's moot. I mean, again, minority, but still.
Do you not think it should be equal? So you think that it shouldn't be?
No, I think what you're saying is fair, but it's not making any sense. Like, okay, sure, let's put women into selective service. Fine, I'm fine with that. I think it's fine. Okay. I think everyone should sign up for it. And there's other ways that people can support the military other than being on the front line, right? Right.
Yeah,
so
most
what other rights do women
want? Roles.
You know what I mean? That are contradictory.
Okay, women want the right to not be a mother, but men don't have the right to not be a father. So women can have a, which I know it varies state. I'm in the UK, so I forget. Sometimes the US is different by state, but like in the UK, abortion's free up to 6 months, but a man can't opt out of child support. So it's like, why does he have the right to not be a father?
But that's not the same thing as women have a right not to be a mother, men have a right to be a father. It's a weird way. Like, I realize I'm nitpicking a little bit. It's a very weird way of framing it, right? Because, I mean, you can choose not to be a father, just try not to have kids, right? The issue is, like, yeah, if you jizz inside someone and they decide to have the kid, you could be expected to pay for it, but I think in most cases, they don't. And, like, I kind of feel like if there is a baby, like, you're relying on the state then. Because are you saying, okay, the father shouldn't pay? It's like, well, then we all have to pay, right? Then okay, she's going to need more child support. We'll have to have more, like, and I'm sure some people are like, no, she should learn for being such a whore and having a child out of wedlock. But in the real world, when people vote on things, people are just going to vote. People see a mother, the father wants nothing to do with the baby. People usually feel like, okay, well, we should vote to give the, like, that's usually an easy, like, that's usually a much easier benefit to get. Although I do remember in the 1990s when I was a kid, even at school, they taught us a little song, a little impression of Anne Widdecombe about single mothers because she was so vociferously against them. But,
but women don't. Or why do women have the right to not be mothers, but men don't have the right to not be fathers? I don't think that's fair or equal.
Sorry, just to go back for a sec. So feminists actually do, they want the draft abolished. So their point is, let's not sign up for the service. Let's abolish the draft altogether. So they are fighting for equality. They are against the draft. There should be no draft. So men and women shouldn't be drafted. That is also equality, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So you accept the premise is wrong on that?
I don't. I mean, it's still not equal the way it is. But yeah, what they're saying.
It's not equal the way it is, sure. And feminists agree. Feminists agree with you.
Oh, okay. I've never heard him talk about that, but
Do you listen to a lot of feminist ideology? Do you read books? Do you listen to lectures? How do you listen to a lot of that stuff?
She read books.
So I talk to feminists all the time.
Right. I haven't seen you talk to an actual scholar once. You just talk to kind of random women.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, I often feel like this is actually just an issue with red pill people, and generally, and I don't think they do it deliberately. I just don't think they think of things this way. Is that, and you see this a lot online anyway, because like, look, we're all debating other streamers. You're all just talking to random people you meet online. So I think everyone's guilty of this. But then you're like, oh, this is what feminists think. You're like, is it, or is it this what people who are having debates online think? This is what conservatives think. Is it, or is this just like some schmuck on the internet? Here's what like lefties think. Is it, or is it some like 19-year-old at university on Twitter, right? You know what I mean? I think we all go this one. You're like, okay, but if you actually go look at what the scholars are saying, it's often very like much more intelligent and much like very different. Like if we go look at evidence, like I'd love to see like a proper like actual like qualified academic respected like feminists go on one of these shows and debate them. They never would, but it'd be interesting. It'd be much more interesting to have Pearl try and talk to like, I don't know, a professor at a university. They get like Jermaine Greer or someone on, right? Have a conversation with her. I know she's a bit of a transphobe now, and it's kind of a shame. Because at least in England, and in Australia, but she lives in England now. Like, you know, she was always like the big rad femme who everyone knows, right? Who you could get on television. What a radical feminist! Everyone kind of likes her. She's a bit like if your grandma was a hardcore radical feminist, right? It was always how I felt about her. But then she went uber transphobic, and you kind of that's a shame. You know, she still says some interesting shit, but you kind of it's a bit of a shame. Yeah. Became a big turf, but then a lot of them in Britain have. We are turf island after all.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say you talk to feminists, you just mean like random women off the street, not like a scholar.
That's say they're feminists.
Yeah, but but feminism
doesn't count.
It's like a.
It doesn't count.
Well, you said you know what feminists believe because you talk to a lot of feminists, but I'm talking about like.
No, I said I've never heard them bring it up. So.
Do you have any interest in talking to feminist scholars who are more aware with like kind of what feminism?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
I think that would be good.
Send them to the UK.
It's great contact you've got.
But they're in the UK.
Mm-hmm. No, I actually tried for some, but then they'll be like, "You're a hateful woman." Da 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 da. There's one that's I can't even remember, some blonde chick out here. Can't remember her name, but yeah, she didn't want to come on.
Blondes.
No, I'm just saying that was her. That's what she looked like. I don't know her name.
You never know if she's telling the truth or not, right? Because it's like, yeah, I don't know, there was some blonde chick. Okay, what's that, Pearl? Okay, yeah, I tried to get some feminist on. I don't know, there's this like blonde chick one who sent me a message saying she was a hateful woman, so.
I forget.
But like, I mean, my point is like when you just bring a random girl and they say, yeah, I'm a feminist, it's kind of like the Steven Crowder changed my mind versus like actually talking to someone who's involved in like the scholastics, you know, the academia of what feminism means historically in modern day and previously. Mm-hmm. So the level of discourse you would have is obviously different. Mm-hmm. So feminists are in favor of equality though. So I don't know if that's interesting you or not. Mm-hmm. You don't believe me?
I'll take your word.
You can trust me. I'm a man.
Okay.
Okay. So moving on. We're talking about feminism. So what other? So you were talking about divorce court. Sorry, I know you were making a point. So let's go back to that. You were saying that women can decide to terminate a pregnancy, therefore they can choose to be a mom, but men cannot decide that, and they don't get the choice to be the dad.
To not be a dad.
Right. So do you think that like? Do you not think that the idea that the baby, obviously the reason for that, right, which we both know, is that because the baby's inside the woman's body.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that matters. Yeah.
So
I mean, personally, I'm pro-life, so I don't believe in abortion at all. But again, it's the double standard. It's like the women have a choice, but men do not have a choice.
Sure. No, I see that there is a sense to that, which is unfair. Mm-hmm. Although there are a lot of single moms, as you pointed out.
Yeah, that are on child support. You know, not all, but you know.
Well, men have the choice in the sense that they can just wear a condom.
Right.
If they don't want to be father.
Yeah, right. But women have the choice to go on birth control.
Okay.
Women have the choice to take Plan B. Women have the choice to get an abortion. Women have the choice to, you know, take the morning after pill. Women have the choice. You have like IUD. There's a million pills.
Right, but those will have to do with pregnancy. But I'm saying, if a
women also can require men to put on condoms or not put on condoms.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Women can also require that the men that they sleep with wear condoms.
Right, but if it's inherently,
she is right.
unfair to men.
Mm-hmm. But
it kills all this discussion.
She is right, but it's not all on the woman, right? You know, I've had times like when I've slept with someone and then I've tried to like get on my dick, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to put a condom on. Right? It's kind of a mutual thing. You both have to do it. Just be safe. And don't jizz inside people without a condom. You probably should wear a condom anyway because of disease, but don't jizz inside people without a condom. It's just not sensible.
condoms when they have sex. Therefore, that.
Well, you can also say women close your legs. Like.
Yeah, but you're the one saying that it's unfair for men. That's my point. You're saying men don't have a choice.
I'm saying women have like 10 choices. The men have.
But that's just biology.
The men have condom or no condom, which again is a choice that both of them make because the women can require that the men wear condoms too.
Right.
But you're only.
But it's in the men. I'm saying
once the baby is conceived, right?
Yeah.
Then the man has no choice, where the woman has a choice.
Okay, so let's just talk about that then, because so it's your opinion that if a woman is pregnant, the man should be able to decide for her to have an abortion.
I'm pro-life, so I would ban it altogether. My point is the double standard, where a man is legally obligated to pay child support and will go to jail if he doesn't, but the woman has the choice to not be a mother through abortion.
I know you're against abortion, but I just want to know what you mean. So let's just say we're trying to make it equal for men. So should men be able to decide for women to have an abortion if she's pregnant?
I think that men should be able to sign off on child support.
Okay, so if they say, hey, I don't want anything to do with this baby,
yeah,
then the woman can decide to have it, but the father will have no obligations.
Yes.
And you think that's better for society?
No, I think that's equal. That's more fair.
Okay, so you're more interested in fairness than the welfare of society as a whole.
No, if it was up to me, if we wanted to go, it's good for society. I don't think abortion should be legal.
No, I know. We're having.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah. I'm saying if you want to make it fair, like I don't think that's fair that the woman after she gets pregnant, so they both make the irresponsible decision, right? Because you'd agree it's irresponsible if it's an unplanned pregnancy that the woman, had sex with a guy without protection, right? You'd agree? Yes.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Okay. So you would agree that's equally irresponsible when it first happens.
Although I guess by your logic, it would be more irresponsible for the men because he has less choices. But
in the UK, it's just over half of couples. Yeah, so a huge amount.
Yeah,
of
they're both doing something irresponsible.
Well, but yeah, they're both irresponsible. So my point is, after that happens, women have the choice to not be a mother, but men don't have the choice not to be a father. At least, if they don't pay child support, they can go to jail.
Right, because that's for the benefit of the children, which is what's the most important thing.
Yeah, but is it for the benefit of the kid to kill him? Like,
say what?
Dude, it's not for the benefit of the kid. Like the woman can make.
Wait, what do you mean to kill who?
I mean, I'm pro-life, so again,
abort the baby.
So if we're going to go for the benefit of the kid, like if your argument is, let's do what's best for the benefit of the kid, the benefit of the kid is not killing the child. Right? I mean, and for me, like I believe it's a kid, right? You might not.
But what's that have to do with the fairness to the man? I don't understand that.
You don't understand. It's not fair, again, that men have the choice, that men do not have the choice.
I understand what you're saying.
And women, yeah.
But then, okay, whatever. We're arguing in circles a little bit. Let's talk about abortion then, since you're against abortion.
Ethan's just not. Ethan kind of isn't that good at debate. Like, he's asked some of the right questions. I'm not like massively slagging him off, but you watch him, he kind of shits around and goes, "You think this?" And then like, I don't know if he's not presented that many statistics. He's not got that much counter argument. He's not like the best. Not the Pearl's best. Pearl will just go, "Yeah, I don't believe that," but like,
I'm assuming your stance is abortion should be off the table in any situation.
Yes.
So if a dad rapes his daughter, then she needs to give birth to that baby.
That's less than 1% of cases. Why do you guys always bring up? I know,
but that's important, Pearl.
Because
if you're going to have a conversation about difficult things, let's talk about the difficult things. This is why the laws exist. The laws exist to protect that little girl.
I'm saying let's talk about the most common thing.
That's easy. That's easy. That's not what's difficult about this.
Well, no, hold on. Because this is important, right? I actually don't think that's a great argument. Because we go, what about rape? And don't get me wrong, because but about abortion generally, like absolutely, it's much worse. Like, but a lot of people, like, absolutely, you should make sure that people can get an abortion if they've been raped or incest. But a lot of people go, oh yeah, if it's rape or incest, I agree with it. But otherwise, they should be absolutely illegal, right? Okay, well, but that's not what Ethan believes. That's not what I believe. That's not what a lot of people believe on like the pro-choice side, right? So I think when you sometimes go, what about rape and incest? Yes, let's make sure that that's covered first, okay? Because that's much worse, okay? Having a baby you don't want, that's bad. Having a baby you don't want because you're raped by your own father, way worse, right? So sure, let's make sure that's on the table. Pearl could just concede that and then go, yeah, fine, okay, in those cases, sure. But in the other 97% of cases, and then where does Ethan go from there, right?
It's like we can get to the difficult things later, but it's like, why do you guys bring
because that's the interesting part. I'm telling you, the law is there to protect on those fringe cases.
I'm saying, why don't we start with the majority of abortion?
Didn't we just do that?
You think, okay.
What do you want to say? You don't agree with abortion. So like if a man and women have sex and they're both being irresponsible, then sure, I understand. You say abortion's bad because we don't want to murder babies. That's not controversial. That's easy to understand. The point of these laws is to protect the little girl who's raped by her dad. These are the challenging issues. So this is why I ask you about it, because this is the byproduct of your position of no abortions are allowed under any circumstance. So if you're willing to take that position, you can't just dismiss this because you are saying that this girl who's raped by her dad should have the baby.
I just think we spend a lot of time. I will, hold on. I just think we spend a lot of time arguing about fringe cases that are less than like 0.5%.
Those are the important cases. That's why
I don't think those are as important as the 99.5% of cases. And so sometimes I think it's a bit disingenuous to say, here's this extreme fringe case that happened. And I don't think you don't make a law for the exception.
Yes,
like
you
don't make laws. The general law is not for the exceptions for the rule. Like why
that's not an exception. Why is that an exception? Or I mean, exceptions are important to the law. That's the whole point.
Wait, do you not think it's an exception? Like a 13-year-old girl getting raped by her dad? I don't know what you can say on YouTube.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. I don't think raped is gonna.
Oh, we stay away
because
yeah. I don't.
Like the thing is though, like we have plenty of laws that are for things that are like rare or exceptions in laws, right? There's plenty of laws where there's like exceptions for various things, right? It's like heroin is extremely illegal, except if a doctor's prescribing it to you in hospital when you, like where they call it diamorphine, but it's actually heroin. When you've like, not morphine, like dimorphine or diamorphine, I can't remember, I think it's dimorphine. Either way. So you've broken your leg, the bone's broken out, the doctor will actually sometimes shoot you up with heroin, right? So even then there's an exception. Sure, it's not an edge case. What if your leg's broken out and it's being administered in a hospital by a doctor who's fully qualified and authorised by the government? Well, it's an exception. It is an exception. But it's an exception to the law that's recognised in law. Law 100% acknowledges exceptions. I don't think that's like, I still don't think we should focus the abortion debate here. Like we should only just make sure when people are like, we're going to ban abortion, like, okay, but look, at least in these extreme cases, we've got to make an exception.
Do you not think that's an exception?
And by exception, but she was raped. What do you mean by exception?
Right. Like, do you think it's common?
No, of course it's not common.
Okay, that's my point. Like we waste.
Do you think that it's less important? Do you think it's less important because it's not as common?
I think it's more important to talk about the 99.5% of abortions.
That's easy. That's an easy conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I get your position there.
Yeah.
But law. Listen, you can write. Pearl, you
can
write exceptions into laws. That's why they exist. Because why should that girl who's raped by her dad forced to give birth to that baby because you didn't want to have a conversation about her?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would still make it illegal, to be honest. Because again, I think you either think it's a life or you don't. So if you think it's a child, you're never gonna encourage killing a child under any exceptions. So
right, right, and that's I guess where the big difference comes.
I don't think that's true though, because there were like exceptions where you're like, okay, it's so bad that it's going to harm. It's you know, like a lot of people, even in like very religious anti-abortion people say, well, if it's the life of the mother, for example, because you've got two lives, so since he raped with the incest and all the rest of it, then you can't, like, it's a perfectly reasonable position to go, no, I think it's a human life, but the damage done to the life of the mother will be so great that we can not have an abortion, right? Like some people that we could give an abortion in that case.
Abortion, people are for and against abortion is that we disagree on where life begins, essentially.
Right.
But ultimately, what quality of life do you expect this child to have from like a 13-year-old girl who's raped by her dad?
Mm-hmm. Is a lower quality life less valuable? Like that's almost saying if you are in a bad situation, your life is less valuable than someone who isn't. And that's kind of a tricky argument.
Not less valuable, but I mean, if we're...
But one should be aborted, one shouldn't. So one should be in society, one shouldn't be in society. I would say that's less valuable.
Well, it's not about should. It's about, like, we shouldn't force someone's character to term a baby that's been born from those circumstances, and probably a baby in those circumstances isn't going to be happy. There are some people that do, you know. There are some people who get violently, savagely raped, and they raise the kid, and they love the kid, and they look after it, right? Those people exist. But when you're going to say that you're going to force someone to have a baby under those circumstances, right? Especially when, like, those are really, especially the sorts of times where people are going to seek some backstreet stuff, because you've got, like, a lot of people that just drive them insane and they'll kill themselves. Literally, you imagine it, right? Even if you're a dude, imagine if dudes had babies, right? And somebody literally, like, arse raped you and then put a baby inside you, and you had to carry this, like, rapist's jizz forming into a human inside you. Like, Jesus Christ. Oh, what's that thinking about?
Well, it's more about you were talking about fairness. You were interested in the idea of fairness, right? Instead of that. Well,
but they are getting fixated on it, right? Like, if you're going to do the abortion debate, let's debate where life begins. Come on. All right. Or debate bodily autonomy, whatever you want to do. Let's not. I do agree. Like, the rape and incest thing is more when people are, like, actually on the verge of banning abortion. You're like, whoa, okay, can we at least please get these exceptions? Because you're insane if you force a girl who's raped by her own father to have that baby. You're mad, right? But, like, okay, but I think Ethan believes that abortion should be available, that it should be a woman's choice. So, like, getting hooked on the what if a girl savagely raped her own father? Like, yeah, it's not like the best. It's just not the best argument. It's just not
fair society. So let's talk about fairness. You know what I mean? Is it fair to the little girl that she was forcibly impregnated by her dad
Right, but is it fair? Is it fair to the child?
Okay, so who's
like that's like we could talk about
a 13-year-old is a child, by the way.
Know.
She's 13. She's a child.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think that's horrible, and I think there should be the death penalty for rapists. But yeah, I'm sorry, like I don't believe in abortion. And again, to me, I think that's a child, and I just can't advocate for the murder of a kid.
Okay, that's fair. I understand where you come from. What about situations where like 12% of abortions are related to health crises, where there's a chance the woman might die or the baby might die or both? Your thoughts on that?
I don't know enough about those situations to really have an opinion on it. I would probably guess that they would likely both die in those situations. So
sometimes it's just
maybe that's an exception, but I don't know enough about that stuff.
Right. Well, we can use our imagination just for the hypothetical conversation where there's 12%. I'm telling you, there are 12% of abortions are related to health crises. So if it's the baby lives, but the mom dies, what do you think should happen in that situation?
I don't know.
Okay. The reason I'm putting your feet to the fire on this is because you says very specifically that abortion should be outlawed in all situations. So of course I'm testing that.
Yeah, I could maybe see an exception for the life of the mother, but I've heard, and I don't want to quote this because again, it's just something I've heard. I've heard it's not as common as people lead you to believe, and like sometimes those stats are manipulated. But I don't.
Yeah, but the commonness doesn't really matter. It's more about I think the exceptions are interesting. I disagree. I think when you say why are we focusing on the exceptions, I think that's a way for you to try to dismiss difficult questions.
Yeah, I just think it's like silly when 99.5% of abortions are not the exception. So
you don't, but that doesn't make sense. I mean, why don't you care about the situation of everybody else just because it's the exception?
I just think you should spend more time debating.
I think he's making that argument badly. So even if he wants to argue it from that way, what I would say is, okay, but do you accept that? Right, we can very often many laws have exceptions written into them, and that therefore, right, would you at least concede that if a girl's raped or it's incest or whatever, and we know, I don't want to get to a whole thing of, well, the stats are manipulated. Let's assume we know, okay, right, and that happens. Would you make an exception there in that instance, right? And because I think it's kind of well, I'm just look, and I think that you have to nail it down because Pearl will always just keep saying things and squirming out of it. You're going to nail her down if you're going to go after her like that.
Most common thing. So that's my opinion.
Okay, very good. So we talked about feminism. The problem with feminism is that women want equality, but they don't really want equality. They need to sign up for the military, which feminists want to abolish the draft. And then we're talking about reproductive rights, where the women get all the choice and the men don't. Is there any other ones?
I'm sorry. I was reading something. What'd you say?
Is there any other examples other than reproductive rights and voting / draft that shows that feminism was a mistake or that feminists are disingenuous or something like that?
I would just say there's just a lack. The biggest one I would say is divorce court. 90% women get custody 80 to 90% of the time. I think 90% of alimony payments are awarded to women.
What does that have to do with women's suffrage, though? You said you criticized the whole thing going all the way back to its inception.
I thought you asked other double standards. No.
Well, I asked you what's your problem with feminism in general. We can move on, though. I have a good question for you. I hear you talk a lot about the pay gap.
Right.
That is a myth. What do you mean by that?
Oh, because women don't do the dangerous jobs in society. So, I just think the pay gap, the majority of the time, is women making an excuse. Yeah.
How many men are actually doing dangerous jobs? It's 100% true that the vast majority of people working in really dangerous jobs are men. But what percentage of men are working a dangerous job? Right. This is 2023. In developed countries, most of us aren't down coal mines and this, that, and the other. Okay. Most of us work in an office, man or woman. Right, work in an office or work in retail or some shit like that, right? In a warehouse, whatever it might be. Right? How many people are doing super dangerous jobs, just generally?
Just excuses. Poor me. When
do you realize you're arguing from emotion right now?
Are you gonna let me finish?
Oh, I just wanted to point that out, but yeah, go ahead.
All right. You asked what I think. You asked what I think.
Well, the pay gap is more concrete than I asked.
When you take into account the number, women work less hours.
Right.
You don't do the most would you say that's true? Women work less hours?
Yeah, statistically that's true.
Would you say it's true that we don't do the most dangerous jobs in society?
Yeah, statistically that's true.
Okay. Wait. The most dangerous jobs aren't necessarily the best paid. Some of them pay quite well, actually, like being a miner, working on an oil rig, shit like that. Can actually pay okay money. But the best paid jobs in society, like being a CEO, being a lawyer, being those aren't really dangerous jobs. The best paid jobs in society are not dangerous jobs.
Would you agree that the majority, if you look at female millionaires, the richest women came from divorce?
Okay.
True or not true?
Yeah, that's true, I guess. I think so.
Okay. So What are we complaining about?
What does that have to do with the pay gap? Any of that?
Because all of those you don't think working less hours contributes to getting paid less?
Yeah, but you know the pay gap. Excuse me. Sorry, I've got phlegm in my throat. So what you're doing is you're misrepresenting what the pay gap is. You understand that? The pay gap, when it's analyzed by economists, and the U.S. Department of Labor and such organizations, they do controlled analysis where they eliminate all these factors. For example, ones you listed of women tending to work in lower paid fields. They eliminate women working less. They eliminate for when women take maternity leave, all this kind of stuff. And even when you do a controlled analysis where you eliminate that,
9%.
there's still a big pay gap.
That's not true.
Okay.
It's like, wasn't it like 3%? Last time I checked, it was 3%.
Oh, so there is a pay gap.
Yeah, but that's 3%.
So, but it's not a myth if there's 3%.
Yeah, but the number they used to
I think it's about 9%, isn't it?
push was like 77 cents to the dollar.
But that's what it is without it's about 20%
Correct.
without the
Correct.
control. Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, when women, like, I just think if we wanted to be equal, then do the same jobs men do.
But there is a bias. But that's interesting because you admit there is a pay gap, 3%. I mean, I wouldn't want to work for 3% less.
Yeah, I mean, if you think that's because of gender, but it's also because women are more agreeable. It's like 70.
That's included. That's part of the control.
Okay. I mean, I don't think 3% you can really say that's just because of gender.
Well, I did some research on this. The Department of Labor published an in-depth report. This is under Trump's administration in 2019. This is from the U.S. Department of Labor. I can link you the study if you want. It's called Gender-Based Pay Disparity Study. The research team found that the raw gender wage gap was 17.4% and the median was 20%. The raw wage gap increased actually between 50th and 75th percentile and remains the greatest at the highest percentile. In addition, the research team found that the importance of human capital varied across wage distributions and part-time work as well as female-oriented occupations. The updated result explained about 20 to 70% of the raw wage gap over the wage distribution, but it left an adjusted wage gap of 10 to 15%. That was in 2019, according to the U.S. Department of Labor.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look at that, but the stuff I've seen, it's very small. It's like 3%.
What stuff have you seen?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but I can send it to you.
Sure.
See, occasionally Ethan does come with the right question at the right time. That was good. What have you seen? Because she's fucking seen anything. What she's seen is Red Pill podcast with people just shouting rubbish. But Pearl will say anything because she's a fucking grifter, right?
But I just gave you a pretty concrete. I mean, the U.S. Department of Labor. Do you consider that a credible source?
Yeah. I mean, if that's true, it's just a lot of times like there are like parts of the study that they don't talk about. So, like even on this is what I was looking at earlier. Like they're saying the stat you gave earlier, 12% of abortions are not done on the surgery table of the emergency room. These cases are overwhelmingly doctors advising abortions ahead of time in case there are risks for the mothers in pregnancy. Also, that 12% number they give is highly inflated. And so it's just a lot of times there's more to it than just like a number you're giving me. But
wait, hold on. Your doctor saying this is very risky for you. You should get an abortion or you might die. That's the health of the mother. That's like, hey, there's a real serious chance you might die. You know, if you carry this to term. Like, yeah, you like have an abortion if that's what the doctor's saying. Like, have an abortion. Like, your doctor's like, yeah, you'll die if you have. I think you very good chance. It's never going to be 100%. I mean, unless it's ectopic or something. You know, it's like, 70-80% chance you're going to die. Yeah, probably get an abortion then.
Yeah, what does that have to do with the pay gap?
Usually happens like that.
No, the point is that like a number you gave me earlier, like there was more to it.
Which number? Which one? I'm sorry. Go ahead. We'll unpack that.
The 12% of abortions are not done on the surgery table of the emergency room. These cases are overwhelmingly doctors advising abortions ahead of time in case there are risks for the mother in pregnancy.
That sounds reasonable to me. I mean, a doctor is qualified to say this baby is going to put your life at risk. I would trust the doctor to say that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but they're saying that number's inflated.
Who's saying? They didn't say that. What you read did not say it's inflated.
No, I said also that 12% number they're giving you is highly inflated.
Based on what? Because what you just read to me doesn't disprove what I said at all. It actually makes perfect sense.
No, but they're saying it's inflated. I don't know.
They did not say that.
Who's they?
They didn't say that. So here,
wait, who's they?
It's just someone I do research with. So just
someone.
Yeah, don't.
That's good. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Don't push, right? Here's an interesting analysis. I thought maybe you'd be interested. Women don't do the dangerous jobs. Women are overrepresented in healthcare. You know that probably, right?
Yeah, it's the number one employer is nursing.
Then hopefully you can explain to me why, when you look at the pay of women versus men doctors, look, you can see this graph. There's a huge disparity of the average wage of male doctors versus female doctors. You can see here, and even this is from 2022, last year. This is again from the Physician Compensation Report. Male doctors make on average $285,000 per year.
The average annual salary of a doctor in America is like 200, over 200. Fuck off. No. That's how. Fuck me. That's insane. That's a real lot of money. That's like Jesus Christ. Christ. Being a doctor in the UK, he ain't gonna get. What's the average wage of a doctor in the UK? Jesus
Female doctors
Christ.
make on average $228,000 per year.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the women's field, and yet they're still making significantly less than their male counterparts.
Okay, does it say why?
No, this is raw data. This is just raw data.
I mean, you'd have to look at why. So
average
so we could
around
justify this
73
by
grand. So that's about
women work less
$100,000.
hours.
So okay, to be fair, so it's like closer than I thought, but still, so the maximum you can earn is 228 grand in the UK, which would be more like $280,000. But even then, that's not much more than what they were fucking showing, or what it was for men. Jesus.
No, but they work with less hours.
That's what I'm asking.
This is controlled. They're working the same hours. They have the same qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, well then maybe they are in that field. I don't know.
Okay, so the wage gap is more complicated, perhaps, than saying it's a myth.
It's possible.
Okay, that's nice to hear. So I would recommend, though, when you go out and do these shows and stuff, because when you talk about the wage gap, you're very adamant about it. Like, oh, this is a myth, and this is why, and you extract a lot of meaning from it. So I would recommend potentially approaching that topic with a little more nuance in the future, especially if you're saying, well, yeah, maybe I'm wrong about this. But here's an excerpt so we can kind of see how you talk about these issues. Here it is.
I think in 2022, any girl that complains, I'm not talking about race because that's the first thing people always bring in. I'm talking about female to male. I think in 2022, if you're complaining about the pay gap as a woman, you're probably just lazy. I have never had a problem getting the same pay as a guy. One issue is that women.
No. So you kind of agree that women who complain about pay are just lazy?
Yeah, the majority of the women complaining about this stuff.
Yeah, the majority of women. What do you mean majority of women?
Oh my gosh, the majority of the women complaining about this stuff are just
women.
whiners. Just what I see, whiners, big whiners. Yeah, I mean, because women, it's like go.
You're arguing from emotion again.
All right, okay. Is that what you're gonna say every time you don't agree with me?
Oh no, you literally are just saying stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I disagree. I'm just saying if we want to have a conversation about this stuff, it'd be better if we don't argue from emotion and say, I feel that all women are complainers, because that's not a productive point, right? You see what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I still think that most women that complain about the pay gap are just whiners.
I think Ethan suddenly started doing a little bit better with Pearl. Like, up to this point, I was kind of like, hey, it's not doing that well. And then, like, I'm like, okay, it's actually like got like doing some good points. There's a bit of little. He seems to be doing okay.
They're big whiners, and I have never had trouble getting a job. I've never had trouble getting the same pay as a guy, and I think that in 2023, it's just a bunch of excuses.
So what's your experience in the work? You use your own experience as an example of why women pay gap doesn't exist.
Yeah, I'm not blind.
Well, hold on. What's your experience in the workforce?
I always had a job from like after high school in the summers, and I worked in corporate America, and then I did.
How long did you work in corporate America?
A couple years.
I'm
only 26.
Right, you're only 26, and therefore I wouldn't put you in and you have maybe 1 or 2 years working in corporate America. Do you think that your experience is ample to say I've seen that women get paid equally to men? That seems disingenuous based on 1 year or 2 years, and you're only 26 years old.
Yeah, that's just my opinion.
Right. Okay. Okay, but I think we've established a little bit, at least you've conceded a tiny bit to me, that the wage gap is perhaps more complicated than yes or no.
If what you're showing me is real, you did this to someone else, but then there's like something else to it. But if what you're showing me is true,
yeah, it's all true. This is all sourced.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, you could easily look this up yourself.
Can I see the parameters for the control? I'm just curious.
Sure, we can do that. Yeah.
I don't know how Pearl's like, yeah, I feel like anyone talking about the pay gap's a whiner. I just kind of feel this way, blah blah. And it's like, yeah, sorry, can I see? And then like when Ethan presents something, it's like, hang on a minute, can I see? Please see a detailed breakdown of the data. I need to know exactly how they're collecting it. Can you show me the methodology, please? If you could give me some of the raw data, and I could crunch the numbers myself, yeah, that'd be really great. Thank you.
You can pull up the U.S. Department of Labor one.
The doctor one. Can I see?
By the way, we've long since moved past, but I did find that study in the Rolotoni video, the Swedish study from several years ago about Swedish prison system. I'm not sure. We can loop back to that.
Wait, what was it? I'm unfamiliar.
Here, I had a bunch of tabs open. Where did it go? In the meantime, here, I'll send this in the Zoom chat if you want to take a look.
Oh, can you open it? Because I don't have the Zoom on my computer. Dan sent a link to you. That I guess that's the parameters one.
That's the Department of Labor's 2019 study. There's a couple more. I guess we didn't.
I'm curious. What do you think it is? The wage gap?
Well, it's complicated, right? I don't think it's as simple as saying it's a myth and women who complain are lazy. That doesn't seem like a productive point to start that conversation. It is complicated.
What is your solution? Like, if you seem to think that the wage gap is real, right? And that do you think women are discriminated against?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
Because what barriers do women have today in 2023? Like, I just genuinely don't understand
barriers, right? It's not about barriers. It's about norms. It's about like patriarchy. It's about the way that we perceive the value of people. It's not about barriers. There's no laws that say women can't do this and that, obviously.
Okay, so there's no barriers right now?
No, not that I could think of. Pay transparency. Okay. So, I mean, I agree that in general, I
feel like Ethan's explaining this badly in that you're like, okay, there's no barriers in the sense there's no laws, and there are laws, to protect. You can't like discriminate against women, blah blah blah. But at the same time, there's just the issue that are cultural of like the way the culture views women, of women being taken a lot less seriously, of women also just being raised to be like less assertive than men, like a lot of very wide kind of things that lead to this gender pay gap, right? I feel like this is actually a problem with a lot of issues like that you see of kind of just rights and stuff like that generally, is that we deal with all the easy shit, right? Same with civil rights for minorities and stuff like that, is you do the easy shit, which is change the law, right? And it's easy because it's easy to get people on side. Hey, the government's not being fair. Okay, well, fuck the government. Let's get them to change the law, right? But then when you're like, actually, as a society, each one of us needs to start thinking differently and analyze the way we behave about everything. Like, most people can't be asked. Most people don't have the time. And then most people kind of just have the views. That's what they've seen in their life. They don't really change their mind. So it's a nightmare getting that to get off the ground. And then no one wants to be told that they're the bad guy. No one's told, oh, actually, I think you have the bias. I think you're the sexist. Like, as he said, the government's sexist. Look at all these sexist laws. Look at all these sexist bosses not hiring women. Right? It's much difficult to go, well, actually, we all need to change as a society and analyse our own behaviour and you know what I mean? Getting everyone to do that's like fucking impossible. Not impossible. It's just it becomes a gradual process that happens generationally, where the last generation have more liberal views socially than the previous one on average.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I do think that there's a bit of discrimination going on. I do think that behind closed doors, when there's no transparency in payment, this presupposition, by the way, that you're putting forward, that women are lazy and just making excuses, that doesn't help. That honestly, it's I don't know how to explain it, but I know it exists, right? I know it exists.
So you think the bosses behind closed doors say we should hire less women?
No, it's not a conscious thing, right? It's systemic. Okay.
Yeah. Then do you have it? Like, do you subconsciously pay women less?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. So then wouldn't? Okay.
So I'm just I don't pay women less,
I'm just thinking if you think there's this like subconscious thing, like then you.
Well, but it does exist, right? I mean, we can look at the
should the women ask for raises at your?
Well, we're talking about you saying it's a myth, okay?
Yeah.
But it does exist. That's what's interesting.
I don't think there's anything stopping you today. You could maybe argue. I can't even do it in my soul. You can maybe argue like 50 years ago, but I just think in 2023 there are no barriers.
Did you say earlier 50 years ago wasn't that long ago?
I love the debate, Pearl, but it's almost like a masochistic thing because she seems like the most infuriating person. Like, especially when she's with like a good debater who like properly tries to nail her down on the points. She like even then she's like, no, I don't think so.
In regards to the draft?
Okay, fine, 100 years ago. I'm saying in the past you could argue, but in 2023, I just don't think there's anything stopping you. I think it's like very much a victim mindset to tell women, like to go up telling us that we're oppressed. Like, I think that I can do anything minus like the physical stuff, but I think I can apply for any job a guy can if I want. I can go after any job that I want. I can ask for more money if I want, and I don't think that.
But don't you think you shouldn't be allowed to? I thought that was your whole shtick. That a woman shouldn't be allowed to. She should be made to go in the hell.
Men are out there discriminating against women. I don't think that men are. If men are such capitalists, men want to make money. It's like if women were so much cheaper, they would just hire all women.
Right. That's not how it works. But I've never claimed to have a solution. Right. I'm just saying.
Also, even when women were like, as a matter of course, paid less, right? The same guys that when you could pay women less, that were just like, well, a woman's not worth as much as a man. Like, they wouldn't take a woman seriously. That's why they didn't pay them less, because they thought they were shit. So, yeah, obviously they would rather have a man because they'd rather have the more high value one that they thought, at the time that they thought had more value.
There is a problem.
I'd also say, I grew up in a family business too. So my dad hired people all the time, like, over 200 employees.
Wasn't your mom the president? Was she the leader of the company?
What was you're researching my family now, huh?
Well, that's all public.
No, my mom, I mean, I don't know what they titled it. Like, I don't.
Your mom was the president, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, they might have titled it one thing or another. My mom did more of the marketing sales side. My dad did the engineering and the software.
Okay.
I think they wanted to get some grant. So I think like they might have had her, like they did that to get some grant from the government or something. I don't remember, but.
So, is that a crime?
Yeah, you probably should say that on air.
We can cut that out.
Might not like that.
So I guess, again, we're kind of hitting a wall on this topic. But what I would say is this: is that I don't claim to have a solution. I'm rebutting your claim that the pay gap is a myth, because it's not a myth. It exists. I don't know how to fix it. I'm just saying it's not a myth. That's an oversimplification, and it's dishonest.
Yeah. I just don't. I think most of the pay gap you can attribute, and you even agreed to this, the 77 cents to 3%, like, is very different. I think the majority of the pay gap 3%. You can.
Oh, you mean the uncontrolled?
Yeah,
it's more than 3%, but I agree that it's lower. Yeah, it's a lot lower.
And even with that, like, I just would guess there's more to it, because I just don't see.
Is there anything else you want to guess?
I don't think that men have this evil. I think it's silly. It's silly to think that men have this evil coalition where they just unconsciously discriminate against women.
I agree. And that's not what's happening. Yeah. That's the oversimplification part. Speaking of coalitions, what do you think about the Jews? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't have any.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, to be fair, I think a lot of people just misunderstand what patriarchy is. I think there are a lot of like feminists who misunderstand it, talk about like it is like this, like men get together. You get some rad feminists sometimes who'll talk about it as if it's like men getting together and doing stuff and like doing a conspiracy, but like that's not really what we're talking about. You're talking about a system which disadvantages women, but everyone kind of contributes to, because it's like culture, right?
I'm just kidding.
Keep me
I'm just kidding. That's not a serious question. Let's talk about some of your really interesting ideas on this one here. You say men want younger women. This is something I've heard you say quite a few times here. I'll play this clip to set it up.
The person that will get me at 40 years old, at 50 years old, is getting a different version than he had when I was 18, 20 years old.
But it's a less valuable version to men.
No, that's not the right man for me, because
no, it's not the right man for you. It's how men can't help what they're attracted to. No, it is all men. They can't. If you survey men between the ages of 20 and 80, they're all the most attracted to 22-year-olds. I peaked 3 years ago, and you guys did too. At 20.
It's kind of silly though, because I feel like people put, we showed this picture of like a 23-year-old woman, and we showed a picture of like a 60-year-old woman to a load of guys, and you thought she was hotter. It's like, okay, take a fat, like a normal bloke in his 50s, not fucking Tom Cruise, right? Some normal dude, bald, right? He's got a beer belly, blah blah, right? In his 50s, and take some fucking 24-year-old giga chad, ripped to shit, and show him to any fucking woman from fucking like 20 to 80, right? Who's hotter, this fucking ripped fucking chad in his fucking 20s, or this like fat middle-aged dude?
23, and this is men between the age of 20 and 80. So what men value is purity, youth, and fertility. And so, like, what would you be able to offer to a guy?
So that's something I've heard you say. Obviously, you strongly believe that, right? That women who are past the age of 22, their value goes down, and all men just want to.
Yeah, no, bro, I'm 37. Like, don't get me wrong, like, it's not that I want to sleep with a woman who's 22. It's just like, yeah, sure, if you show me a woman who's 50, a picture of a woman who's 50, and here's a beautiful woman that's like 22, you're going to go, well, I'm probably going to look and go, well, maybe the 22 one's hotter. Although nowadays, which is quite good, there's a lot of hotter women who are like older, right? But one of the things about getting older, right, that made me the most happy was I noticed that the age range I was attracted to, like, got older with me. Not that, like, I'm not attracted to women in their early 20s, whatever, but like when I was 20, I was like, shit, okay, I'm like not attracted to like women in like over 50 at all, right? So am I just going to get old and then I'm not going to find my wife attractive, or I'm not going to find any woman I've got a realistic chance with attractive? But then I got older and I got into my 30s and I'm like, oh shit, now I'm kind of attracted to women in the like 30s, maybe early 40s, like, and stuff like that. And like now there's plenty of women who are over 50 that I would like, find attractive, right? And like that's made me really happy, because I'm like, okay, as I get older, the age range I'm attracted to is also going to get older. Great. But then I feel like people try and promote this idea, and it's so bad for you, because I see guys do it, and a lot of the red pill guys do it, but a lot of guys do it generally, where you get obsessed with youth, and then you start noticing every little change in a woman. Oh, she's got a crow's foot, now she's old looking. And it's like, bro, you're just fucking yourself. Like, most dudes in their 50s aren't dating 25-year-olds, okay? Maybe there's some millionaire, maybe some film star, right? But most dudes, okay, when you're in your 50s, you're going to be with someone who's like in the 50s, maybe in the 40s, right? So why would you do that to yourself? Why would you do it to yourself? Well, like, you're not attracted to women you've got a realistic chance with. It's just silly.
Want young girls.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what's the message behind this? What is it? Who are you speaking to, and what is it that?
I mean, it's just true. Men do want younger women.
Well, right. I want to ask you this before we get into that. What is your message? Who are you speaking to, and what is it you're hoping that they take from this?
And the average age gap as well between people is like, what's it like? Between something like 4 or 5 years, I think. Right. Because again, you meet generally people are meeting at work, people are meeting right or on apps, right? People are looking for people right their own age. Because sure, it might be fun to bang people sometimes who are a lot younger than you, but like they're in such different stages of life. They're doing such different things. Like before I met Danielle, I was like seeing a girl for a while, just kind of casually, who was like 23, and I was like 34. But like it was fun. We had a lot of fun, but like at the end of the day, she was like a student doing a master's degree and like at a completely different stage in her life, and like things shit was completely different. Like working a bar, out every night during the week. Like there wouldn't have been a future there. Like whereas now with someone who's like 2 years younger than me, like a year and a half younger than me, it's like, okay, we're exactly the same stage in life. We like all of the same shit. We have all the same references to remember from shows we grew up watching. Like we have loads in common. Right? She's like my fucking best friend, and like that's just much better. I don't think it is true outside of, hey, here's a fucking picture of a 22-year-old woman. Here's a picture of a 60-year-old woman. Which one do you want to bang to most guys? I agree. Most guys are going to go 22-year-old, right? If you actually look, who are you with? Who are you actually chasing, right? It's going to be within your own age range, generally. Plenty of exceptions, but within your own age range generally.
I mean, I just believe in speaking about things that are true. And I think a lot of times as women, we're told that we can just wait forever, get married at 35 and have a bunch of kids. And that's just not true.
Who's saying that?
I just think it's a message that's pushed by the media and culture today.
To be fair, I think the average age of getting married now, at least in Britain, is like in the 30s. I think probably the same in America, right? I know in America, like people are more religious and stuff, so I could see there being like millions of people who get married quite young. Especially in like Bible Belt states, but yeah, we don't look that up.
The media is telling women to get married at 35.
I mean, what have you ever seen? Like, what's a homemaker that's on TV?
You mean like in a sitcom, or you mean like in a
no? But I'm saying like we don't have them in the media and the culture. Like family really isn't. It's really family really isn't pushed. And so I'm not saying it to dog on women, but I just
even in Algeria, it's like 32 for a man, 28 for a woman. That's kind of surprising. It's like the North African, like Middle Eastern country. I thought it'd be more religious to get married younger. Okay, this is pretty interesting. Like we scroll down here. Okay, so actually, like a lot of countries, some countries see this big age gap, like 30 for a man, 26 for a woman. I've seen Djibouti, Egypt, 31 for a woman, 25, 31 for a man, 20. Like some countries you've got this big gaps, but like, yeah, I don't know if that's the that's in Africa. So if we go to the Americas, 30, 27. See, look, these are all like quite close gaps, 28 for 25. Right? It's not this like, 50, 22 for the woman. United States, 30 for a man, average age for a woman, 28.6. So most women are getting married at fucking 28 28, 29, right? Okay, that's the average. Let's go to Europe, because it's too much now. I just want to check UK. United Kingdom, 30, in the UK it's 33 for a man, average age of marriage, 31.7 for a woman. Right? Okay. So, you can't wait till you're 30 to get married. Okay, well then you're the average woman. If you wait until you're 30 to get married, you're the average woman. If you wait until you're nearly 30 in America to get married, you're the average woman. Okay? The average woman is getting married in like early to mid 30s. The average woman is. That's the fucking numbers. Right? Not showing a guy a picture of a 22-year-old and a 50-year-old and go, which one do you want to fuck?
I think a lot of times like we're lied to. I mean, we have men are called ageist if they don't want younger women. You know, men are constantly shamed when they have a standard. So it's not. I mean, that's like a conversation from a 3-hour episode. I don't remember the.
I've heard you bring it up a lot. I know that.
Yeah, because it's true. So and a lot of times with women,
you're speaking to women. You're saying past 22, your value is going down. And,
yes,
and your message,
your value on the sexual marketplace. So your value, like that doesn't mean like your personal worth. I'd like to just clarify that. But yeah.
And so your message to them is nothing. Just saying that because it's true. I mean, why not just say the sun is hot?
I mean, don't wait till 35 to get married. Get married as young as you can.
Right, get married as young as you can.
Yeah.
Now, you seem to offer a lot of advice to. Who you're mostly giving advice to women? Would you say?
I wouldn't really. Okay.
No, she's giving advice to.
I wouldn't really.
Excuse me.
I guess sure.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think I've heard you say that even. And then so men.
Like I wouldn't say I'm like an advice channel. Like do this. I mean, it's more talking about the state of relationships today is a better way that I would put it.
So as men get older, not like super old, but their value goes up. And as a man's value on the sexual marketplace goes up, they're looking for younger virgins, right? That's important. And so any woman who's not...
Well, historically, virginity has always been a prerequisite for marriage. Like 100 years ago, 85% of women didn't admit to premarital sex. So,
yeah, didn't admit, number one. But number two, like, yeah, the culture was different. People were way more religious. People were way less tolerant of like, any kind of like sex outside marriage. And people also ignore, like, it wasn't socially acceptable for dudes to be fucking loads of women back then. I remember sitting with my grandparents, my dad's parents. My granddad died a couple of years ago, but he was saying, "Oh, you're finding a wife now, blah blah blah." I said, "Well, I'm only at the time. I'm only 30. Like, So, me and your grandmother were together from when we were 17." And my grandma goes, "Not like they are today." And my granddad goes to me, oh, I know. You didn't go with a woman in our day unless you were married to her. Because in the 1950s, that was shocking. If you were a dude and you're banging loads of women outside marriage, that was shocking. Right? It was shocking to most people. Sure, there were musicians, film stars, like big business people who probably were. But, like, it was behind closed doors. That shit wasn't, like, public. If that got public, that was, like, a big thing. Okay? Like, it wasn't okay. Maybe it was worse for a woman. But if you were a guy in, like, the 50s, and certainly before that, talking like going around fucking loads of women, yeah, most people thought you were disgusting. Right? And I'm not in favour of that. I'm totally for sexual liberation. Do whatever the fuck you want. As long as it's consensual and adults, do it. Right? But, like, back then, that wasn't acceptable. So I think people thought, well, you know, all the women back then used to be virgins. Yes, I did the fucking men, though.
You know, it's more abnormal now that women are not virgins anymore.
Do you know what an appeal to a tradition is?
Which also, by the way, has to happen, yeah? If you want the women to be virgins, the men can't be fucking, okay? Because you've got the same number of men in society as women, right? So if the men are fucking dozens of women, the women have to be fucking dozens of men. It doesn't work any other way, right? Unless you've got a small group of, like, sluts who are banging, so-called, who are banging thousands upon thousands of men. Thousands! Right? Unless you've got that, right? Yeah, sorry. You can't have a society where all the men are banging loads of women and all the women are virgins. It doesn't make sense. Like, mathematically. It is the thing that annoys me about it the most. Not even the fact that it annoys me it's a shit that fucks women over and it's shitty for them. And it always seems shit. But just the first time somebody tried to explain it to me, it just sounded mental. Like, they were like, oh no, right? Yeah, so you got a woman, you got a man, they want to bang. Right, now, A, the woman's evil, and B, the man can bang dozens of women and all the women are still virgins. Somehow. Somehow. Because, you know, you can have 1 plus 1 equals 1, according to these people. But the simple as math, 1 plus 1 equals 2. Men are fucking, women have to fuck. Otherwise it doesn't work unless they're all doing gay sex.
What we did 100 years ago doesn't predict anything.
Well, I'm saying the outcomes are better for women. Like, the outcomes are obviously better. We have more women on antidepressants than ever before. And, it's tough because there are studies both ways when it comes to female happiness. But most of the ones that I've seen indicate that women are unhappy over a certain age without children. And most women wanted to have kids at some point in their life. And I just think, and, you can see what happens in front of you. Like, you're not blind. Women are happier with the family.
Again, you're doing the I'm not blind. I see this, which is, like, again, kind of an emotional argument.
I'm not happy with the family. I know if men get divorced, they could, like, that's actually the biggest contributor to male suicide. Now, it's actually complex, and a lot of it's to do with networks of friends. And so the marriage ends, they lose a lot of the friends that they had through the marriage, and then, right? But the largest cohort of men killing themselves is actually, like, men over 40, like men over 45. Like, the life falls apart. So I think everybody's happy with the family, right? I mean, being in a relationship and having somebody and loving someone and having them love you back is, like, the best feeling in the world, right? So, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
You just want to call me emotional today. That's just your go-to.
Like, seriously, like, find somebody.
The
sexism that the sexism I face in this country, I just get called emotional.
Right. Well, it's hard to have a conversation with somebody who just says, "I feel this." You know what I mean? It's like, how do you address that in a conversation? You say, "I see this. I'm not blind." I mean, that's not really a concrete.
Well, I listed before that.
Let's talk about those. Antidepressants didn't exist 100 years ago. What relevance does that have on the happiness of women then and now?
I mean, we're seeing them get more and more on antidepressants.
Well, men are on antidepressants too. I think those
we're not talking about men.
But if men and women are getting on antidepressants at the same rate, then
why can't we have a conversation about women without talking about the men?
Because
it doesn't. It's like 90%.
Oh my God, she knows. She must know. She's not that stupid. She isn't that stupid. She just acts stupid. This is what annoys me. She's just trying to shut down the thing. It's like, bro, come on, Pearl. You fucking know what they mean. If men and women, if everyone's doing loads of antidepressants, you go, well, no, the women must be doing it because they're not happy having sex. But the men are also like, oh no, it's probably something else. No. For them, it's got to be different. But everyone's just at the same rate is doing like antidepressants. It's a big thing. It's more of an issue, I think, in America, although I think it is an issue here, right? But then we've also got better at diagnosing depression and diagnosing a lot of this shit. I remember when I was a kid, and like randomly dudes would just have like a nervous breakdown. That's what he used to call it. He said, oh, he had a nervous breakdown. Right? Like in the 90s, you'd hear someone's dad or something, oh, he's had to go away, he had a nervous breakdown. Because basically he's had to keep all his emotions in. He's had to not like acknowledge he's like depressed or he's got all these fucking problems until it builds and builds and builds, and that's basically a psychotic episode, and they have to put him in a fucking home for 3 months. Right? So, you know what I mean? We just got better at spotting and diagnosing this shit.
I can't answer your question.
There are other factors too. But that's a big.
So it's like 90% of women are on contraceptive or have been on contraceptives at some point in their life. 1 out of 3 women has 1 out of 4 women have an STD. 1 out of 3 women has had an abortion. It's like these aren't good numbers. Like, do you genuinely think that sleeping around is good for women?
I don't think, in my opinion, mass sleeping around, like you're talking about, like 100 plus partners, isn't good for men or women.
Okay.
That's my
Do you
opinion.
think sleeping with multiple partners is good?
I think it's completely fine. I don't think there's an issue with women having multiple partners.
Do you think it's good for them? Do you think it's good for women?
I think it depends on the person in the relationship.
Well, then wait. There's something like being fine and like being good, being good for you, right? Like, you know, is watching TV sometimes bad for you? Well, no. Was it good for you? Well, no. Like, something can be like not bad for you and also like not good for you. I think personally it is good. If you like sex and you want to have sex with and you like variety and you want to experience different people, then yeah, it's good for you. Right? As long as you're being safe, as long as it's consensual, regardless of what your gender is, your man, woman, whatever. Right? Fill your boots. Okay? Do what you want. Right?
Relationships. I mean, the premise is neutral. The premise doesn't imply, you know, people, men and women have good and bad relationships. Some benefit them, some don't.
Mm-hmm. Overall, multiple partners. You would say good for women or bad for women?
I literally cannot answer that question because it makes no sense. It depends on the relationships. But let's say this. I'll answer it. I'll say I think it's good to get more experiences in life and to have multiple partners. I think it's good.
Yeah, I think it's not good.
Why?
So, I think because it leads to more heartbreak.
Heartbreak?
Yeah, like women sleeping with multiple people. I don't think that's a good thing.
You don't.
Just to be clear, Pearl's banged like multiple dudes. Pearl slept with like quite a few dudes. It's clever for talking about how she wants to be on dating apps. I'm like, oh, why does no one want to fuck me? This is what I mean. These fucking red pill women do my head in even more than the men, because the men really believe this shit, right? Some of the women maybe do, but a lot of red pill women, right, are just fucking grifters who just come in and will say any old fucking shit. They don't live that lifestyle. They don't believe any of the fucking shit that they're saying. They just come on, talk bollocks, right? And then do it for money and don't even really care or believe about half the shit they're saying. And if they did, they'd be living that way, right? If you really mean it, right? It's like if I was going around going, you know what, we should all be religious and we should all believe in God. And then I'm like, I'm totally atheist, I don't do anything religious. But it's like, well, no, not for me, but really I should be, I'm just not. But everyone else must. Everyone else must. Like, you're not living that way, you liar.
You can get heartbroken without sleeping someone.
Yeah, but that's true, but I just don't think it's the same. Women attach through sex.
You think it's not the same? Men attach through sex too, by the way.
Yeah, but we're not talking about men. I'm talking about women.
But
I don't think sleeping around is great for men either. But I don't think it's the same for men and for women.
Hold on, you keep saying let's talk about women, and I just want to say, if there is a communal experience, then it's worth bringing up. Like you say, more women are antidepressants, but if men are on antidepressants in the same trajectory, then that would imply that it doesn't have to do with anything to do with women being promiscuous. It's more of a societal thing that affects both genders equally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wait, say that one more time. I'm sorry.
If men and women are both on antidepressants at the same rate, then that would suggest something on a larger societal issue, and not because women are promiscuous. So I think that is worth bringing up.
I mean, you could argue a lot of societal issues have come from women being promiscuous.
Okay.
So I mean, you could if 85% of women were virgins 100 years ago and everyone's on antidepressants, maybe
so was society perfect 100 years ago?
Maybe it doesn't have good outcomes for women.
Society was perfect 100 years ago when women were virgins?
I didn't say perfect, but there was more intact families. Which
the life expectancy.
This is the problem that they do. You're like, oh yeah, it was 100 years. Oh, life was fucking shit. Every country in the world, even the richest, best ones, were shitholes. Right? In England 100 years ago, most people were in terrible poverty, like grinding fucking poverty, right? Working in factories. There was fucking smog everywhere, right? It was fucking shit. And then people are like, oh no, it was really good. Like, everyone was racist. Britain had a racist empire. You had insane segregation and lynching in like America, right? And it was like, things were fucked. There was poverty, oppression, like just of everybody, not just like women, like not right. Like, and it's like, yeah, well, okay, everyone was poorer. Things were horrendous, right? There was like death. Like, the average life expectancy was like 50. But the divorce rate was lower, so okay, maybe everyone's happier and cleverer and produces more when they can't actually fucking get out of unhappy relationships, eh?
It was like 50 back then, just so you know.
I did not say. I don't know, what does that have to do with anything?
Well, you're saying the quality of life. Things were better back then.
I said we had more intact families, which I think is important.
Okay, let's talk about where were we? We were talking about we were on the topic of men wanting younger women. Here, did I finish this clip?
I just learned a lot from them, so I'd love to hear this side.
Oh, this is the pay gap one. Sorry. Men want younger women. We watched this whole clip. So I was just trying to basically apply it to your life if I can. It's like, so older men, when they have money, they have status, they're going to want a younger and more virgin women.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a bit of a question.
I always have to pull the face. That's just a personal thing. I'm just really not attracted to like super chaste virginal women. It's like, yeah, men want a super chaste, a virgin who doesn't like penises and is like 22 and is like, oh, I would only wait until marriage. And I'm kind of like, okay, that's like so far away from what I'm attracted to. And I know that's me, that's my own personal shit. Right? That's not survey, that's not data, that's fuzzy logic and fuzzy taste alone. But still, I know I'm not alone in that. In fact, I actually see a lot of guys like kind of ruin their lives because very much like me, they're like a lady who likes sex, is not afraid of it, and does that. And that's what they're attracted to. If you get in the head and you got to marry like a more, not necessarily a virgin, but a woman who's been with like not many people, blah, blah, blah. Get with a woman like that. They're not fulfilled sexually at all by her, right? And like, yeah, they're hot, but like, once you've seen someone every day for a while, like they stop like being, it stops being as impressive, right? If you don't also have that deep sexual desire, right? There's a difference between physical attraction, right, and sexual attraction. This physical attraction looks nice. And then sexual attraction, like, oh my God, this person drives me wild, right? And that's like, right? And they end up cheating on these women left, right, and centre, right? They're not like bad guys. They just end up hating themselves. I've seen like multiple friends do this to themselves. So I actually think more guys are actually like with me that, yeah, perhaps if you want to use that kind of word, like sluttier ladies are like is hotter, right, and like are more attracted to that. Not like in a crazy way, not like somebody who's like got some kind of issue with the like sex mad, but like, you know, sexier women, right? But they get themselves into these scenarios where they feel that for societal reasons, whatever, they have to marry somebody who's more virginal, and then they end up seeming to like, and they seem to ruin their lives. Don't get me wrong, some people want like really chaste women. That's what they're attracted to, innocence, purity, right? But I also know a lot of guys who like I know personally, and I'm like, dude, I know you're not. Like, I know that's not what you want. Right? In fact, the only case I can think of with somebody being like happier and more fulfilled was when I'm 99% sure she was lying to him about how many people she'd been. She said it was like 8, and I'm like, and he was like, oh God, sex is amazing. I'm like, yeah, dude, because she's bullshitting you.
Question, and I'm being honest here. Is it possible and you look at men, right, in terms of like their viability. You look at men and say, he's a high value man, he's a medium value man, he's a low value man, right? And we could say that. We can put men into those categories. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's say you're in the dating field, right? You're looking for a partner, right?
What do you mean?
I mean, you're single essentially, I guess, and you're looking for a significant.
Maybe not.
Okay. So if you're looking for men, if a man who is willing to settle, let's say you're not that old, but you're 26, and you say that anyone over 25 is like almost damaged goods or getting worse and worse.
No.
It's less valuable. It's less valuable.
Correct. Yes, I would say.
Weird though. Like, I'm 37, okay? I'm sorry. Like, I wouldn't, yes, I'd sleep with women who are 22, but like, even then, it's like, and I want to be clear, I'm not saying it's like a pedo thing, that these are grown adults, they could go in the military and go and fucking die in a war if they wanted, right? Like, right, it's still like, what the fuck do you have in common with them, like, that much, right? Like, that, like, you just don't, I'm not saying it can't happen, I'm not saying you can't have people that, like, you have people, like, a lot of shit in common, especially probably in the streaming world, but, like, I'm sorry, they're not, it's, I just don't think that that's true, because people marry people who are roughly within their own age group. Yeah, if you speak to most dudes, I'm sure, again, show them a picture of a woman who's 22, show them a picture of a woman who's 50, who do you want to ban? Sure, they'll probably go 22. But just like, hey, you're nearly 40, do you want to marry a woman who's 20? Like, some dudes would like be over the moon. A lot of the time, it's the guys who weren't getting a lot of sex anyway, and now they're making a lot of money, right? But I think most dudes like, no, I want someone I can like kind of share my life with who are in the same stage in life. They're not like super immature, right?
Say I was more valuable 5 years ago. Yes, in terms of the dating market. Yes.
So do you think that? How can somebody?
I feel like this happens a lot to Pearl, right? It's like, okay, you shit all over women, but then you're a woman. So are you prepared to admit you're a piece of shit too? And she'll just be like, yeah. And it's like, well, you know, I would have sympathy with it if it weren't for the fact that she, kind of fucking does it to herself.
Somebody who's older and not a virgin and less valuable, how can they get in a relationship with a man and not think they're a loser? Because if you're a low value woman, then in a sense, you'd be judging the guy who's quote unquote settling for you because he couldn't get a higher value woman. So in a sense, a guy that you would settle for would be a loser by your own metrics. low value.
Well, what are men supposed to do? 95% of women aren't virgins on their wedding days. You could be a multimillionaire and not get a virgin.
How do you?
But I think that's why you see more men walking away from relationships.
No. How do you enter a relationship and not think that he's a loser because he's low value?
I don't really know how to answer that question.
But it is interesting, right? Because in a sense, only a low value man, and I'm sorry, I'm only framing this in your worldview. Let's say a medium value man would decide to settle on somebody like you who's a little bit older, not as fertile. You're not a virgin, and also I'll tell you something else. You like being in the foreground, which is not good for traditional marriages.
Just to clarify, women in the late 20s are 100% like pretty much just as fertile. Like, if you look at like the chances of you having kids, people talk a lot of bollocks about. We're getting bogged down. People do talk a lot of bollocks about fertility. It starts to go off a cliff after 35, right? But even then, like, I was reading like 65% of women of 40, if they tried for a kid for over a 4-year period, would have a kid. They probably like it would take about in a single year, like it was only about 30% would, but if they tried consistently for 4 years, most women would still even be able to conceive. Even then, let alone Pearl at 26 is probably like, assuming she has normal human fertility rate, she's probably fine. Right?
He's looking for someone who wants to build a home. You don't know how to cook.
Yeah,
either.
I don't expect to be with like a high value guy. I think that's silly.
Okay. What's your
like when I think of high value, I think of like top 5% of men.
So what value do you think you'll be settling on in your own personal life?
What she do? I mean, at least in terms of earnings, unless she marries a guy who's earning way less than she is, she's got to be like with a guy in the top 5% of earnings. She lives in the UK, and to be in the top 5% in the UK, I think is earning over 90,000 a year. Puts you in the top 5%, and she probably earns more than that for streaming and shit, right? So unless she's going to go with the guy who's earning way less than her, he's definitely going to be in the top 5% at least of earners.
What value will I be settling on in my personal?
What man do you think is reasonable for you to pursue?
I just I think that's a bit of a inappropriate like question. But
that's interesting because you spend like all day talking about this stuff. I find that it's really interesting to have you put this analysis into use. Why is it?
Because the way you're framing the question is a bit disingenuous.
How?
I think most women
how is it disingenuous?
Yeah, I think it's a bit disingenuous.
Why?
Okay.
Why? Why is it disingenuous? I'm analyzing your viability by your own metrics, which you do all day to other women and men. Why is that disingenuous?
I don't. Okay.
Like, I think it's fair to say, because we're talking to women about expectations and men about expectations based on their value. I think it's fair to say, okay, well, what's your value of man you're looking for based on your own? What's
my value to a guy that I'm looking for?
What value of man?
I wish I don't know what you want me to say. Like, I wish I was a virgin. I should have waited.
No.
Like, I don't know what. Like, I don't. Most guys don't expect that in 2023, unfortunately. I think men adapt to the market.
A lot of guys don't want that. I know a lot of guys still aren't like keen on women who've been with like loads of dudes, but I don't know like that many guys. Like, and I know a lot of guys that were like, oh no, I won't want to be with a woman who's been with loads of dudes, so I want to be with somebody who's like blah blah. But like very few of them were like, oh, I want to find a virgin. Even as a hypothetical, right? Because I mean, if you're gonna like sleep with someone regularly, you at least want to know what the fuck you're doing. That's why I've never been attracted to virgins. I've never got personally. For me, I know a lot of guys still think that way, but I've never got it. Like, I'd rather be. I'm not saying I want to be somebody who's insane, but like, I don't know. I've always dated people who've been with more people, and they've always been very good at sex. Like the people I've actually been in serious relationships with, right? And that's like pretty good. I mean, it's pretty nice that all of the best sex I've had was like with my fiance, right? It's just good, like. And I know like a lot of guys don't think like that. I am even now, even in Britain, which is like more liberal on that kind of shit. I'm still like I'm still a minority there, but like I don't know. I'd rather be with someone that was like reasonably experienced and is like great at sex, and we can have amazing sex because especially if you're in a monogamous relationship, that's pretty much all you're gonna be getting for like a long time. So yeah, that'd be bloody good.
But I think to say that you should just sleep around is a bit silly.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking.
Well, that you were saying that more partners is good. I think that's a bit silly.
No. Okay,
I think it's silly to say like
Pearl. I'm talking about you. Your value by your own metrics is going to be not super high.
I actually have no problem with the people who are religious or whatever, and they want to like or conservative, traditional. They don't want to sleep with a lot of people. And they want to meet someone. I think it's weird when you get this red pill mentality of a guy should sleep with 50 women and then marry a virgin. It's kind of a bit weird to me, but. And also, again, I've never got the obsession with virgins, but I'd rather see them discuss that. It seems more interesting rather than him just make Pearl feel like shit. She deserves it, and he's right, and like it's funny to do. Because if you're going to be a woman who hates women, it's like going to be really easy to go, well, aren't you a piece of shit too then? Right? But it's like, okay, we've done this to death a bit. Let's let.
high.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, it's less high than it was 5 years ago.
But it's not even just the age thing. It's like you are working, you're in the foreground, you don't know how to cook. These are not good things for your scorecard.
Hey, I'm pretty good now. I've gotten
you have a
lot better.
Okay, good. You're working towards it, but unfortunately, as you age, those things are going to bounce out.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes like you start in a certain place in life, but all you can do is improve and get better.
That's interesting. I agree. So, what is the point of telling people that they're?
Because a lot of times we're lied to. We're not even told what men want. Being told that men want younger women is like crazy, even though that's
not true, by the way. That's not true, by the way.
Men don't want younger women. They want who's hotter? A 50-year-old is equally as hot as a 20-year-old, just based on looks and nothing else.
So yeah, it could be. I mean, it could be.
Mm-hmm.
But like how?
But that's a silly example again. Like again, show fucking women. Go to women, right? Go to women, right? Show them a picture. Here's a fucking like 23-year-old dude, ripped giga chad. Here's a fat middle-aged dude. Out of these, if it's just pure sex, who do you want to fuck? Right? You're gonna get the same results, right? Now I know there's a larger age range. Like okay, there's some like if you show them a silver fox and he's fucking 48, but he's still ripped to shit and blah blah, right? Like, right, there may be a higher percentage. But then to be fair, I think if you show like a lot of dudes also like older women. When I was younger, I used to like really. It was like when I was in my 20s, I was like, that was the height of the whole MILF thing. When everyone was like, oh, older women. You know, when I was like a teenager, American Pie came out and it was the whole MILF thing. And everyone was like, oh, MILFs, oh, right? So I don't think it is all like so true. I think you're using an like extreme like disparity of showing like people, here's a beautiful 24-year-old. Here's like a woman of like 60, right? And again, it's the same for fucking women. It's the same for women. And saying it isn't is just stupid.
How do you meet a guy that you respect because he's settled? Don't you see that there's a paradox here?
That's not true of everyone. It's probably not true of the majority, but it's happening more and more now.
You respect men. You don't like.
But how are you going to settle for a low value man? Because like that, it's like, dude, come on,
a low value man.
A low value man.
I think if you get married, you're lucky to get married. That's my opinion. Okay. So I would feel very lucky. If I was married, I would feel.
So you'll take anything.
No, I won't take anything.
Your
I didn't say. That's not what I said, but okay.
You said I'll be happy if I get married. I don't, you know what I mean? Hey,
yeah,
anybody marries me would be great.
I didn't say to anyone.
Actually, I take it back. This is actually fucking.
How would you? So
it does actually. He does like throwing a lot of shit at like her. And initially I was like, come on, get to the real issues. But then Pearl's never going to engage properly with real issues. So I'm like, you know what? This is actually quite funny. It's harsh as fuck, but it's
Where's
funny.
Your value as a woman? Would you say like on a scale of 1 to 10?
I give myself like a 5.
A 5? Yeah, that's fair. I think. I mean, based on your metric, I'm not saying one way or the other. So we're looking for.
I think I'm a 5.
So you're saying that all men want to have sex with younger women. This is kind of interesting data, but are you aware that the MILF category is like the most popular? It was the #1 most searched term in 2018. MILF.
Yeah, men like to have sex with older women.
But why is it the most searched for?
Yeah,
they're looking for MILFs, and when they watch porn.
Are you saying porn is the same thing as marriage and relationships?
You say men want to have sex with young girls. Why then are men when
younger
they're
women? When you say young girls, that's a bit.
Okay, 22. I mean, what do you want me to say? Okay, young women, 22-year-olds. Why then are they going to Pornhub and looking up MILFs if they just want to, if they prefer? And this is the most searched. Wouldn't they be searching for like teen or something? 2018, yeah.
You know, men aren't that picky. You know what I mean?
No. It's not about picky. It's about preference. They look for.
Okay, so I have a question. Why do you think like the #1 like they swipe right on younger women?
That's just the thing you said.
Do you think it's equal? An 18 or 22-year-old versus a 50-year-old woman?
I don't. Why did so much of
I'm asking, do you think it's equal?
Like, information that used to come from fucking Tinder? Like Tinder's a fucking hookup app, right? Where people are just looking to bang. A lot of the women on like Tinder who are like, especially over 35, are looking for a relationship, and they've just gone to the dating apps because, like, so yeah, it really doesn't surprise me when most people are on Tinder because they just kind of want to bang. Right? This is the worst example. Right? I don't know anybody that's even had like a proper relationship off Tinder. Like all I ever had off Tinder was sex. All anyone I've ever met has had off Tinder is sex. Right? Or maybe like a little relationship. I had a couple of little relationships. Right? Like, he's the worst example.
Equally attracted to the average 55-year-old versus 22-year-old.
I would be more equally attracted to someone closer to my age where I am in life, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I would
maybe
say,
like -5 years.
Yeah, but younger typically. Not older.
Well, I mean, plus or minus 5 years.
Younger.
Plus or minus.
Younger. Right.
Plus or minus 5 years.
Okay, you said younger first, but
I'm telling you, plus or minus.
Okay.
There's no take-backsies? No take-backs. You said younger. Yeah, but so how do you explain that?
Most women want to date 5 to 7 years older. I think men go like 5 years younger.
Is there any way to explain why MILF is the most searched category?
Guys like to watch, a hot mom have sex. Yeah.
More than a young girl have sex, apparently.
Are they the top porn stars? Because I thought those were younger women. I thought it was like the ones that, I mean, I don't actually watch that stuff, so I don't know.
I don't know the stats, but I'm just telling you based on search that people are looking up MILF.
That didn't sound believable. I mean, I don't watch any of that stuff. I don't know where you would even find it. Like, I'm just saying, that sounds like Paul watches porn. Like, no wrong with it. No wrong with it at all. No problem with that. I'm just saying, that sounded very much like a lie.
Way more than teen and stuff like that. So that is interesting, though.
Do you think it's better for a woman to get married at 35 than 22?
I think it's neutral. I think it depends on a lot of things. I do think women who get married young have a higher rate of divorce.
Yeah, it's like below the age of like 21 or 18 or something. I don't remember.
So that kind of disproves your thesis, doesn't it? If younger women are getting
I would
divorced,
say overall younger is better than older.
but if younger women are getting divorced more, and you're
the youngest, not younger. But we also wait to get married. The average age of first marriage in the UK is like 31.
Yeah, but our life expectancy is like double what it was, so it's not really a fair comparison.
That doesn't change biology. Like, so when it comes to children, like women are still the most fertile when they're younger. So, I mean, we can have a cultural shift, but that doesn't change your biology.
Well, we have a scientific shift too. We have methods of making it easier for older women to have babies. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like the cultural shift is matching the scientific. IVF, it's not just IVF. There's fertility treatments you can get. I've done it with my wife. It's less invasive. It's like taking hormones and stuff. And so the science. I
can pull up the numbers, but the majority of IVF fails, especially over a certain age. I can pull it up. So I think it's expensive too. It's like the average IVF is like $30,000.
Yeah, most fertility treatments isn't IVF. There's less invasive, less impactful, less expensive things that you can do that are really effective.
Right. I mean, you can, but again, most people are living paycheck to paycheck. They can't afford a bunch of fertility treatments.
Okay.
Like, I think that's easy for you to do, right? You're in a great position.
It should be free.
Average,
I agree.
But I don't think that you should pay for other people's decisions. You know.
You can actually get one round in the UK free on the NHS, but it's actually extremely unlikely to take after one round. So it's a bit like, I feel a bit like some kind of fuckery on people. So you get one free, there's about a 30% chance it's going to work, and then you're going to have to pay big money. I personally think it should be free. I think the issue is, I think this is one of the things that contributes to low birth rates, right? Is that life isn't the same as what it used to be. You don't have to be like an old man when he's 25 anymore. Not like an old man, but you know what I mean? Even in my parents' generation, right? Okay, you're 25, stop like worrying about wearing cool clothes. Stop worrying about like going out, bars, chilling. Now you've got to be serious. You've got to have a family. You've got to get that. Whereas like now it's like, yeah, you need a career. You need to pay your bills. You need to get buy a house, whatever. But you can have a lot more fun and you sell fun. So people don't want to give that shit up until later in life. And I think we should actually like research better technology and try and invest in saying, okay, look, a lot of the barriers to this are the fact that women can't, it's much more difficult to conceive after, like, it starts to get more difficult to conceive after 35 and obviously like virtually impossible after 45, right? So, because of that just means people are like, oh fuck, I just don't want kids then, it's too late. Right. Whereas if we have the technology, we might help to counter the low birth rates. If it's really easy for a woman to have a kid at 45, like probably that would help to deal with a lot of the lower birth rates that we're seeing across the developed world, right? Even one of the factors. Other factors involve like housing and all the other shit, cost of living. But
I think if you want to make that decision, you should pay for it. But I just think that's an easy thing for you to say when you're in like you do such great numbers. I'm sure you do really well income wise.
Thank you for saying that. We shouldn't pay for what other people do. Should we pay for prisoners or should we execute them all?
Those are my only options.
Well, we shouldn't pay for
prison or execute them.
Okay, right. That's extreme. In a sense, though, I'm trying to make it like a somewhat because
that's a tough question.
Well, prisoners cost on average like $30,000 a year for the average prisoner.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or even more now, probably like 40,
more. I think it's like close to 70,000 or something like that.
70,000.
Let me look it up. I'll look it up. So
that's crazy because the IVF is obviously way cheaper than that. Mm-hmm. So what do we do about them?
To execute or put them in
or what else? I mean, what would you do with prisoners? We're spending $45,000 a year. What do we do with them?
Yeah, the average is it looks like 45,000.
To be fair, you could probably like police a lot of crazy shit. I don't think it'd be that difficult to torture into like death penalty for all crime.
5,000. IVF probably costs like 10,000.
What are they in prison for? I don't know much about. It's kind of a different, topic, but I do think we should execute.
Well, they're all costing us the same amount of money. 45,000.
We can execute. And murderers, yeah, we can. The rest, I don't really know. I don't have a strong opinion.
Well,
but
IVF, in general,
but I guess prison would make a bit more sense because you want a safe society, so that's something everybody benefits from. But I don't benefit if Susie down the streets waits till she's 35 to get married.
But then her family will be stronger. She's less likely to get divorced. The kids will grow up in a stable household.
Or she could do that when she's younger. Like again,
but that's not how it works, and you know that. You look at the stats. Younger people are more likely to get divorced. Young people don't make as much money. Younger people have less time to spend.
What do you mean by young? So like I think the stat I saw was under the age of 21. But it's like above that, the divorce rate's very similar.
Do you think women under 21 should get married?
Yeah, if they want to. I think, people, I'm not forcing anyone to do anything, but I think more time you can spend with a husband rather than just like out on the dating market. I think that's better. I think less experience is better.
So here's an interesting analysis regarding men wanting to sleep with younger women.
The top.
So I've been trying to source that figure.
How old is Abella Danger? How old is she?
How old is Ab?
Wait, is that a porn star that she's bringing up is very successful? You see what happens? Like, this is the thing. It's like, okay, I'm trying to find the number. Where's the statistics that show conclusively the men exclusively like this? Well, there's this porn star and she's like 19 or some shit. But that's Bill's whole shtick.
Abba? She's 27. That's pretty old in your world, isn't it?
Lana Rhodes, Riley Reid. Yeah, but that's not a MILF.
No.
So I think, for us, it's like 18 to 28.
Lana Rhodes is 26.
26, yeah.
Yeah,
but again, the most searched.
It's 18 to 28.
Just because they're the most popular doesn't mean it's the most popular category.
Also, they're 26 is over the hill, right?
The top categories I have is ebony, lesbian, threesome.
I don't see any 22-year-old head large mainstream porn stars.
I mean, 22 versus 26, it's not that. Like, we say 18 and 28 is a woman's peak.
20. What is the woman's peak?
Between 18 and 28. I mean, 28. It slowly declines after like 22 or 23. It slowly declines, but 18 to 28 is
and peak as in what? What does peak mean?
Peak like looks wise.
Okay, looks wise. So I've been trying this claim that men between ages 20 and 80 want to have sex with 22-year-olds. I haven't been able to find any source for that. The only source I've been able to find is from this book.
Can we put the prisoners to work?
Say what?
Can we put the prisoners to work?
They already do. Yeah, they do.
Exactly
they're slaves already. They work for like 10 cents an hour.
Yeah, but only
to profit private corporations, by the way. It doesn't benefit you at all.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a good system.
You seem very knowledgeable in the prison system. I wouldn't call myself a prison expert.
Yeah, and that's fair. We don't need to. No. I don't expect you to be. So, in terms of sourcing, this claim that old men want to have sex with, not old men, all men want to have sex with 22-year-olds around that age. The only source for that I could find.
So they find that the most attractive.
The only source for that I could find was a book.
Okay. Yeah.
The way that these numbers are sourced is pretty poor. So it's not really that high quality of a source. But I'll read you the results. It does say that men 20 to 50 find 23-year-olds most attractive. But in the same study, it says, but women that men find they're most interested in are women of their similar age.
But they found the 23-year-olds the most attractive.
But not the most.
How did they source interested in and desirable?
I think
how did they just ask them?
The whole study is pretty
it wasn't even really a study. This was a book. And I'm sorry if this isn't what you got your statistics from, but it was the closest thing that we could find to the stats that you were laying out. And it has shown that 20 to 50 men, when asked who they find the most attractive, the answers generally fall in that range 20 to 23. However, this wasn't really a study. This was a book by the CEO of OkCupid, and he was basing all of this off of analyzing the raw data from OkCupid. And this was in 2014, so it was about a decade ago.
But they're most interested.
Right, and they found the same conclusion that Ethan just pointed out, that though they may find younger women more attractive, who they are interested in dating falls generally much closer to their own age.
But if you have a better source on that, I'd love to hear it, because we look.
Even if you look at dating app data, like what? Because it all starts with looks for men.
This is
dating. But I'm saying it starts with looks for men. You're not going to get in the door unless you look a certain way.
Yeah,
so I mean, there's some older women that right, that look good enough to get into the door, but it starts with swiping, and that starts with looks. So if they find the 22-year-olds the most attractive, that's what you need to get in the door first. It's not to say that every woman over the age of 30 or 35 is like done for completely, but it's going to be a lot harder. And I think it's dishonest to say it's going to be equally as easy to date when you're 35 versus 22.
Yeah, I didn't say that. But you're saying men. Men
tend to, in general, like younger women.
But find younger women more attractive.
But they're not who they're interested in.
Right, but everything starts. But men, it starts with looks. So you don't get into the door unless you look a certain way.
I think you're making a big generalization about all men.
Okay, do you disagree with that? You don't think it starts?
I think a lot of men have a lot of different preferences, and
I think this is sometimes like it's not a good, like you need to eat that. It's true. Looks are important. I think looks men may be somewhat more visual, but I think looks are still pretty important to women, right? Now, yeah, sometimes you see the big fat like ugly dude with like a really hot wife, but most of the time you see a hot woman, what's her boyfriend look like? Oh, he's ripped to shit and he looks fucking great, right? I think humans generally are quite looks. I think men may be more visual than women. I think women because I think women also like look at vibes and stuff. Although I sometimes think men are wrong to not do that, right? Like I always kind of like the whole package of a woman, like not just the way she looks. And I'm not doing that. I'm so woke, I like a personality. No, like I mean, there are things I find sexy that are like the way somebody acts, the way somebody moves when talk about, rather than like simply looks. But yeah, looks are important, right? And I think when Ethan's like, I think you're generalizing. It's like, yeah, but looks are very important for men and women. It's not the be-all, end-all, right? And personality is always going to be more important because someone can be beautiful. If they annoy the shit out of you, right, you might want to bang them, but you don't want to spend a lot of time around them, right? If you're going to be in relationships, okay, yeah, it's not the most important thing, but it's what gets you in the door, right? And that's true for men and women, right? If you meet any woman and go, okay, if a guy's really ugly, right, has he got more chance than a really hot dude of getting with you? Like,
I think a lot of men's consideration of what attractive has a huge variance as well.
Okay.
So when you say good looks get you in the door, I mean attraction is pretty subjective, don't you think?
I think that it starts with looks for men.
And looks is pretty subjective.
I would say it's not. I would say men tend to find the same things attractive.
Beauty is objective.
Based on what?
That's an interesting take. Okay.
Based on what?
I would say dating app data.
Which ones?
I don't know off the top of my head, Ethan.
This one from OkCupid said men are most interested in men of their own age. Or sorry, women of their own age.
It said women. They find women the most attractive at 22, 23, right?
But they don't want to date.
My argument.
They don't want to date them though. They don't want to date them.
They find them more attractive.
You guys don't let me finish. My argument is you need looks to get in the door.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
what does that have to do with being 22?
Find out the most attractive. Men tend to find younger women more attractive.
I think you have a really.
I think it's like dishonest to say. Do you really think it's equally as easy to date for a woman at 35 versus 22?
Again, nobody said that.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think it's harder for the 35-year-old in general?
I think.
It depends though. Who is she trying to date? Like, most of the people I know have got with people in like the 30s, right? They're allowing like long-term relationships, right? Me, loads of other people. I don't like if a woman in her 30s is looking for like dudes around her age. Like, no, I don't think it's that difficult. If the woman in her 30s is trying to bang 22-year-old dudes, yeah, probably it's harder. Like,
there's less options as you get older.
Yeah, of course. I think
for men too. For men too.
And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for both.
Yeah, but do you think it's equal? Do you think men have less options equally as much as women
as they get older?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, who fucking knows?
No, I'm asking your opinion.
You're asking my opinion. My opinion is that it's probably similar. Probably similar.
If women, yeah. See, I disagree because I saw a different dating app that the most. No, I saw a different. I think it was either OkCupid or Plenty of Fish. I can't remember which one, but it was like the most swiped right on age for women was 18, and the most swiped right on age.
Well,
for
that's
men
just
was
people, dude. I mean, there's way more younger
50.
people on dating apps than older people.
Sure.
Like if you looked at age distribution, it'd be a vast majority of younger people.
Well, and when I asked men what age they preferred to date, I think it was like 5 to 7, like 5 years younger was the average, and women it was 5 to 7 years older. So even if we just go off of women's preferences, like men would have more options when they get older because women want older men.
That's all just, you're just saying stuff. I mean, you're just saying stuff based on what you think is real. I don't think any of that is necessarily true.
I mean, I could find it. I mean, I don't have like a team like you guys have.
Yeah, but you say this stuff all the time on your show, so I would expect you to be somewhat.
you don't have a team. She runs a whole podcast. What?
Familiar with the.
I mean, it just depends on, like, sometimes you forget which one.
Sure.
She comes out with some right shit.
Give me a second. I'll find it.
Did you know that the number 5 porn star of all time is Lisa Ann? She's 51 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Brandy Love is number 8. She's 50.
Nina Hartley.
Men, they like MILFs, man. Men like MILFs.
Yeah, it is the. I also feel like the thing is when you're in these red pill spaces, for a lot of the dudes that are like the podcast, the people that like it's a lot of it's about what other men are thinking about you, and it's about showing off your trophy wife. Hey, bro, I'm like fucking 38. Look, my wife's like 22. Like, rather than like, especially when I was younger, I used to really like older women. I mean, I like it. Was it going to go to my late 30s? It became like not less hot to me. It was just like less like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm sleeping with someone who's 35 when I'm like 20. But
experienced women that know what they're doing. They like men like that.
Do you think that men want that for relationships?
Do you think men want to date a child for relationships because they're more attractive?
I think men prefer younger women in general.
In relationships.
Yes.
That's just, I'm sorry, but that's not even backed up by your own data. It says men are more
younger than them, typically.
Younger than them, that's a different, that's not, men want to date 22-year-olds. A 50-year-old
they're the most attracted to 22-year-olds and looks get you in the door.
She keeps conceding the 5 years thing. So even if we take what she's saying about, men want a woman 5 years younger, women want a man 5 years older. Okay, so a 35-year-old man wants a 30-year-old woman then, not a 22-year-old woman. 45-year-old man wants a 40-year-old woman, not a 22-year-old woman. And what 22-year-old women, how many are banging dudes in the fucking 40s? Trust, I've seen it. I've seen guys. I remember I was in the beta a while ago, right? And there's a geezer, very reflected, it's just an anecdote, it doesn't prove anything, but there's a guy there, big, ripped as shit, like muscle guy. But you could kind of tell he's like mid-40s, right? Like from his face and shit. But like ripped, 6-pack, the full fucking thing with his rippling fucking muscles out, blah, blah. And these two girls, must be about 21, 22. But like, comes over and starts trying to chat them up, and the look from them was just like, unfortunately, you just kind of come off as gross in 90% of cases when you're way older trying to bang the like 22-year-old women. It doesn't work. Most men can't do it. There's like, unless you want to go to some crazy gold digger bar in Miami or something, right? Where they're all just after money and you flash the cash and they'll get with you, right? Like, it just looks bad and most women won't do it. I'm sorry, like, if you, sorry to guys in your 40s, even if you look good, you're going to fucking struggle to bang women who are like 22, right? Unless you're Leonardo DiCaprio and they fucking love your films. Oh my God, I love Titanic. Yeah, sure, then okay, I agree. I understand why they're banging him. They've seen his films, they love it, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of female porn stars, plenty of female film stars in the fucking 50s. I'm pretty sure could bang loads of dudes, right? Because you should be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm banging like so-and-so, right? That's kind of thing, but that's fame. That's what fame does.
Yeah, but it doesn't just get you in the door. That's just step one.
You're saying different things. In this culture, if a man is walking around with a 22-year-old, people are going to think that's weird. People think
two
it's
out of
weird.
the five. It says 2 out of the 5 top porn stars in Pornhub are 23 and under, and all of the people that you're listing started young.
So they're old now.
Yeah, they built their fan base.
I don't think it really works that way.
But they're old. They shouldn't be. They shouldn't be
How do
hot.
you not think it works that way? You guys are in media. You know damn well that you build a fan base.
Bro, what do you think? They're YouTubers? They're not doing Minecraft Let's Play. They're naked.
Come on.
I don't find that analysis very interesting. And apparently you don't either because.
Sweetie Fox, 22.
Yeah, there's porn stars who are 22.
Yeah, of course.
The majority are younger.
Yeah, but not the popular ones.
The most popular ones are younger. Most popular ones are younger.
They're like in late 20s, you know.
My dog's barking. 1 second. Oh, quiet.
Also, obviously, there's going to be younger porn stars. It tends to not be something people do like throughout their lives, right?
Sorry, I let her outside. It's kind of hot in here.
I want to ask you.
The number 1 porn star is 23.
Who?
It's either. Let me see. It's Eva.
Who's the number 1?
It is,
I just don't think it really.
The number 1 porn star on Pornhub is 23.
Who?
Eva Elfie is 23.
She's not number 1.
What I'm saying is number 1.
But even if that's true, I don't think that refutes anything. I mean, it's possible that number 1 is 23. But
you
she's not number 1.
You just said it. You just said it refuted it. If that the number 1 search was MILFs.
Right. Well, it counters your argument. Okay, let's move on. There's just arguments in circles here. I want to talk.
Ethan could have defended himself a lot better. Then. He's just not a good debater.
Talk about.
I need to get on some of these fucking debates. Not that I've got anywhere near enough that Pearl will chat to me, but I need to get some big debates going because I had a geezer who was a creationist a while ago. I was going to fucking debate with him, and it turns out he's actually super reasonable. I got like the one reasonable creationist who was like actually really like showed a really nice chat with him. And it's like I didn't even make a fucking like YouTube video of it. I was like, this is just boring. It's actually boring to watch. I was like, oh come on, he believes the world's great in 6 days. It's gonna go. He's got to be crazy. And then he's actually like quite a normal dude. So just had to chat with him. So I was like, oh great. I mean, like we debated, but it wasn't interesting enough.
This a little bit more. Higher body count.
They said the 2018 poll, citing a 2018 poll, and the 2022 numbers show that the MILF drops.
The MILF drops, but it's
citing a 2018 poll, and the 2022 numbers show that the MILF drops.
It's top 5 most searched. Number 1 in UK, Southern Asia, Canada.
We did say that it was 2018.
Yeah, the 2018
Yeah, but
one.
I'm saying it says the 2022 one that dropped.
Oh, so men became less interested in older women in the last 5 years, I guess.
Well, this year,
well, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, go ahead, Olivia.
MILF was number 1 search term this year in the UK, Southern Asia, Canada, and Netherlands.
Yeah.
And it was in the
MILFs.
top 5 most searched for terms in Paris, Italy, Mexico, Spain, Poland, Ukraine, Argentina, Sweden, and Belgium this year.
And Lana Rhodes is number 1, and she's 26. But whatever, who cares? Let's move on.
Okay.
I disagree. Listen, I disagree. There's not a lot of data on this. Like, there's really no data to make a conclusion. So again, I just don't think it's fair for when you talk about these things to say, oh, science says this, data shows this, but there's no data that shows any of that. I mean, it's just, again, you feel that way. You feel
we
that.
just talked about that men find 22-year-olds the most attractive.
Yeah,
so
but not the most.
You can interpret the data differently than me. That's fine. Like, we can
It's not really data. That was some random blog from a book.
We can. I mean, there's also dating app data, and then you guys interpret it differently than me. We can interpret it differently, and you could come to one conclusion.
But that's again like what does that mean though? It's like the dating apps. Most people are younger. B, half of them are like mainly for hooking up, right? Like again, I just don't know that many people even that are ending up in serious, stable, long-term relationships off a dating app. I think I know one dude. I don't even know him that well, but yeah, I think he met his wife on maybe one of the Jewish dating ones. Then I think a family then super pressured him to rush into marriage with her. I mean, they're happy they've got kids, they're happily married. But that's one dude. Yeah, I don't know anyone off Tinder and Plenty of Fish, any of the other ones who are in like a stable, long-term relationship. A little bit of dating, sure, we've all done that. I've plenty of like little relationships, mini relationships, and that. I've never met anyone seriously. I'm like, I'm going to fall in love with this person off these apps. Right? I just don't think they're good for that. They're good if you want to hook up, right, or just go on a few dates, right? But they're not. You're not going to meet your future spouse on that in most cases.
Conclusion.
Let's agree to disagree on this one. So tell me, we didn't really get to flesh this out, but I find this topic interesting. Why is a woman with a high body count, and high, I guess, is like 10 plus? What is high?
Well, it depends. Depends what guys you ask, you know.
In your opinion?
I mean, in my opinion, I really think it's best to be a virgin when you get married. So I didn't do that. I wish I did, but I think it's best to be a virgin.
Okay, but like, what would you consider a high body count, if in general, when men are looking, considering such a thing?
It seems like the body count studies that I've seen, it drops around like 5 to 7.
5 to 7. Okay, so what is inherently less desirable about a woman with 5 to 7 partners?
I mean, what value does that bring to a guy?
Well, it's neutral.
Yeah, I mean, I just think
I asked you what devalues it, not what values it.
What devalues it? I think that you have more X's to compare your current partner to.
Oh, so it's insecurity. So you would be insecure.
If you want to label it that way, but it's like, why would you want someone with more X's?
5 to 7 sexual partners means that there's too much to compare me to, and therefore you might think that I'm inadequate because you've had better partners.
Well, it's also like the rate. Women are happier when they're virgins on their wedding day. So
that is just something you said.
No, look, I mean, you can look up the studies on body count.
Yeah, we can fact check that. It just seems like something you just say.
It's like from the Family Institute, something in Family Institute.
Okay, but so while we look that up, let's say so women are happier, but
the more sexual partners a woman has, the less happy she tends to be.
I'm asking you, married. What is less attractive? Because you talk about men are looking for women who have had less.
Yeah, isn't that because she's got less married? I don't know if that's good though. Like, I don't know if it's just like getting married super young, just being like from a super. But then also a lot of the people that in this day and age in the modern era that are virgins when they get married are like religious, right? They probably spend like. Religious people tend to work on marriage a lot more. They tend to be a lot more like it's a lot more important to them, right? So there's a lot of cultural shit that probably goes into that, right? Even if that is true. No idea whether it is true, but if it is true, that's what I would at least speculate. We need more
sexual partners. So what is less attractive? What makes them less attractive?
What makes them less attractive? Men don't want hoes. Men don't want women that have slept with multiple people.
We're talking about 5 to 7 partners. Why don't men want hoes?
Do you want a woman with a lot of bodies?
5 to 7? I don't consider. I think that's totally like.
Well, I think most men would, pray for that nowadays. But what
do you mean most men would pray for it? Because the number I looked up is 10% of women there's only 10% of women in the United States have more than 15 partners. The average number is 4.2.
Did that study was for women? It included older women too, though, didn't
25
it?
to 44.
Yeah, yeah,
it's tough, isn't it, when data comes. But it still seems crazy low to me, to be fair. Personally, but again, as I said before, I'm weird like that. I'd rather be with somebody who's like more experienced. Just because I like sex and I would like to be with somebody who A, likes sex, B, is very good at it. And I am, so that's great.
I just think it would probably be more accurate if you kept women under like 35, but
so what makes a hoe? What does a hoe mean?
I mean, it depends on who you ask.
I'm asking you, clearly. What
do I think? I mean, from a historical perspective, really a virgin. Like, I think you should be a virgin on your wedding day.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Well, what's that have to do with men being attracted? You said men don't want to date hoes. I just want to unpack that. Mm-hmm. Men don't want to date hoes. I don't know what that means, if I can be totally honest with you.
Men would prefer a woman with less sexual experience than more.
Oh, less? Well, so I gotta disagree with you. I just don't think that's true. I don't think men care. I don't think men care how many sexual partners their women have had, unless it's like 100. But that's true of men. Men who have had 100 sexual partners are also pretty. Do
you think women care about Drake's body count?
Why?
Like women want to sleep with Drake and like.
Fucking Drake. Though why? Like, literally, when he's like, "What if a woman's being beaten? Should she be divorced?" Oh my god, these crazy edge cases. And then he's like, "Well, yeah, but like, if a dude slept with 100 women, like most women are a little put off by it." Oh, do you think if they care about Drake's body count? One of the most famous musical artists currently in the world. No, I think they'd fucking bang Drake because they'd just be like, "Oh my god, it's Drake." Like, would they date him? I don't even fucking know. Come on. Sometimes watching Pearl is fucking painful. But we're masochists here, so we're gonna fucking do it.
Other celebrities, do you think they care about their body count?
Are we talking
But
about
men
Drake, or are we talking about general pop? I mean, Drake's a celebrity.
Men are lining up to date like Lana Rhodes, Mia Khalifa, and like actually marry them.
Crazy, dude. Are you crazy? Do you really believe that, dude? Men would. There is quite literally.
There are men that would literally give their
Come
life
on,
to do that.
you can't believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think men with the most options? That's what they want to do.
Yes.
Men with the most
Are you
options wanna do
fucking
what?
mad? Sorry, like this is the fucking thing. Do you think like someone like I don't know, Cardi B or one of these people like would have trouble fucking or like finding a boyfriend? I mean, I think she's married and has a baby, so. Mia Khalifa, yeah, you're right. I think she struggles. I'm sure.
We're not talking about men with the most options. Are you talking about women with the most options when it comes to Drake? Or are you just talking about average fans?
I'm talking about Drake does not have a problem getting laid because of his body count. I would imagine that I would imagine that porn stars would have a hard time getting into marriage with a man that they respect and admire.
Aren't you the one that's always been like, let's not talk about fringe cases? What's the point of bringing up Drake? That's like the most extreme example, wouldn't you agree?
I mean, we could even go into like normal dating. I think
that's more important. Yeah, let's do that.
I just think it's silly to argue that men want to date women with high body counts.
No, they don't want to. I'm saying I don't think it matters, especially the number you gave me, 5 to 7.
Other,
yeah, 5 to 7. I don't think men care about that in general. I just don't.
I mean, you could argue 15 to 20, 25. Like, I don't know exactly what point, but usually there is a point for most men.
Sure, and like, women. I mean, and women. I don't think women want to date someone who's like.
I just don't think. I don't think it's equal.
It's not equal because Drake.
Yeah. No, not because of Drake.
Because we should remove like celebrity and outside kind of influences from this because that obviously creates unusual, fringe cases, which we don't like. We don't like to talk about those.
So then what about the abortion one?
I was just parodying you. I thought
you liked.
I was just kidding. I was just joking. Yeah. All right, one last thing. I see that we're getting exhausted here. It's fine. Mm-hmm. Drake saying, "I want a girl with a future and a past." That's a lyric of his. He wants an experienced girl. Even Drake's talking about it in his damn lyrics. Drake doesn't want a virgin.
You just said no celebrities. That's crazy how you just threw that out the window now.
You don't want to talk about it. Drake wants a girl with a future and a past.
Oh, stop. His simp pandering music to women. He makes money off of that. Women are...
Oh, okay. Like, all right, well, fuck me. Look, I'm sorry. Like, I agree probably like most... Like, the thing is, we're just talking about 5 to 7, which apparently is like the average. Like, yeah, I think most dudes probably are cool with that, right? Like, sure, if they're religious, if they're this red pill, whatever, maybe not. But, like, people are cool with that, okay? Then there's, like, a lot of people like me who, like, probably seem like Drake. And I imagine also if you are a fucking, like, famous rapper and you can bang loads of people, you want to be with someone who's good at sex and experienced. Like, I've just never got the idea that you, like, have a lot of sex, you've experienced loads of different people. And, like, then you want to go for someone who's not good at it because they have no experience. Like, the first time I ever slept with my girlfriend was some of the best, like, my fiance was some of the best sex I ever had. I mean, like, we've had, like, better since, but, like, Jesus. And that was just, like, the first time. And then it just got better, because, like, I know what I'm doing. She knew what she was doing. Good at sex. Have great sex. Like.
Come on.
Like. All right, let's talk about one last thing.
Like a creepy, probably, yeah.
And I do thank you for being here. You know, it's combative, but I think it's a good conversation. I wanted to ask you about one last thing. This comment I thought was interesting, and tell me what you think about it.
This sounds similar to the slavery stuff too, because that's literally the founder of, or the guy who made Roots said, I wanted a myth for my people to live by. So they often, but that's what they do is they embellish, and I'm not trying to say it wasn't horrible, it was, right? But they want to make it like more horrible so that they can control people.
So in what way was slavery made to seem more horrible than it was?
We were talking about, I don't really want to go into this too much because we're kind of past this, but I was quoting a Thomas Sowell book.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, of course.
So,
okay.
Who's that?
Yeah, so Thomas Sowell's an author who talks about the history of slavery.
He's the Pearl of black men. He's like Pearl, but for black men, basically. He's not that bad. I don't think he shits all over black men in the way that Pearl shits all over all other women. But he's basically, yeah. I'm not doing the whole analysis of his work. But,
but do you agree with that premise that slavery was embellished or no?
I think that there are parts that are under embellished and there are parts that are over embellished. I think it just depends what we're talking about.
That's so interesting. I've got to know what was over embellished about slavery. Just like one example, I'm dying to know.
Yeah, I just rather. I mean, I was talking about a book that I read.
You were pandering to Nick Fuentes when you had him on the stream. Now you're shitting yourself about, especially because like half the people shout on the show are black. of being like, yeah, I think they're making it up about the old slavery. It wasn't that bad. You got yourself into a corner now, Pearl. You shouldn't have pandered to Fuentes, should you? It's just as a blanket rule, right? Unless you are very far right, don't pander to Nick Fuentes. Have him on your show. I'd give anything. I'd love to fucking debate Nick Fuentes. That'd be so much fun. But like, never ever pander to a man like him, because you're going to, unless you are an extremist, because you're going to end up looking like a lunatic. Just don't. Just do not pander.
And I think to understand the context, you'd have to read the book.
But you just said some parts were embellished, some parts were under embellished.
I just, again,
are you retracting that?
I'd really just rather not.
Okay. No, but slavery being embellished, that's so interesting. I don't know how you embellish it.
There are certain facts that we're not allowed to talk about.
Like what? I would love to. We're doing the taboo.
No,
we're mixing it up. It's red pill, baby. Let's see the world as it is.
Taboo topics.
I genuinely want to know how it's embellished.
Yeah.
What can't we talk about? Come on.
I mean, I could show you the video I was quoting, but it's just, I'd rather not get into this, so.
Sounds like a blue pilled attitude to me.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping this was like a good faith interview.
Wait, what's bad faith? I'm literally showing you clips of you saying stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. What about this interview has been bad faith?
I just think you're kind of trying to push an agenda, and you're not. Yeah, I just think you're trying to push.
That's a clip of you saying that. You can disavow it. That'd be super easy to say I was wrong.
Full interview where I'm quoting somebody. Like, if you watch the full interview, I am quoting somebody, and now you're trying to pin me down about a topic that I don't dive into.
Hold on.
So it's like,
hold on.
To be moderately fair to Pearl, we saw a very short clip, right? So I don't know the full context of it, right? It would be good. Now, if Ethan had the full clip and it does it make it worse for Pearl, that would be great. Oh no, you're right, Pearl. Sorry, let's do context, and I'm going to show you 5-10 minutes of it. But don't get me wrong, I could totally see that it looks like she was pandering to Fuentes. I totally believe that of Pearl. But let's be fair, I get cross sometimes when the people do 2-minute clips and of people. I'm like, come on, you clipped them out of context. You're being ridiculous. So fair play. It was a short clip.
Not the point of my channel. Okay, the point of my channel isn't.
I know, but you said it. How is that bad faith? Hold on, let me see.
Because I was talking about how the founder of Thomas Sowell talks about how the guy that made Roots talked about how it was a myth for his people to live by. Okay. That's what the guy who made Roots said, Alex Haley.
Okay.
So, and I can't even talk about that on a podcast without being canceled by the internet.
Yeah, but mythology, myth doesn't necessarily mean it's a lie, right? Just because mythology is like a culture,
right, but I'm
history.
saying that doesn't mean the way it's depicted in the movie was how it actually happened. And that's what he was talking about on the book. But again, I was quoting the book, and you're trying to pin me down on quoting a book.
Let me watch.
Roots is often criticised for, well, partially because Alex Haley insisted that the whole thing with the Kunta Kinte and stuff was real, or at least there were parts of it, and there's a lot of evidence that it wasn't. But also, or that he definitely knew that he was from these people, and also the experience of black people in America was losing their culture, not secretly being able to hang on to it. So that wasn't necessarily I forgot what I was going with that. But yeah, if anything, he toned it down. I mean, you watched 12 Years a Slave, which was based on a book, but written literally by a geezer who experienced that shit firsthand, and that happened to him. Right? And it's oh yeah, no, this was fucked. It was horrific. It was horrific. I remember I was watching a history program a while ago about the UK history, and they read from a British slave owner in Jamaica, his diary, and it was nuts. It was one guy wasn't working hard enough, so he took another slave and forced him to shit in the first guy's mouth. Right? And it's just right in his diary. Yes, I made John shit in Timothy's mouth today. It was fucking horrific. Right? It was really fucked.
Just again, and see if I'm doing that.
Stuff too, because that's literally the founder of, or the guy who made Roots said I wanted a myth for my people to live by. Yeah. So they often, but that's what they do. Is they embellish.
So then you say, but here's what they do.
And I'm not trying to say it wasn't horrible.
I'm not trying to say it wasn't horrible.
Right, but they want to make it more horrible.
But they want to make it more horrible
that they can control people.
So that they can control people.
Right, but
Nick Fuentes agrees.
But wait! Oh my gosh! 5 minutes before I say Sowell talks about this in his book, so I'm communicating in the interview that I'm quoting an author.
Come on, Pearl. You're saying Sowell said it in his book, but you were saying it in a way that says you agree with it. Again, it's a short clip. Maybe after she goes, and of course these aren't my views; these are simply Thomas Sowell's words. But
honest. You say they do this to. Okay, so you disavow. Just disavow it then. That's easy. Just say I don't think slavery was embellished. I mean, that's super easy. That's like a layup. Do you agree? You know what I mean? It's just say you don't think slavery was embellished.
I think there are certain facts that you're not allowed to talk about. I don't really want to talk about it today.
But that Roots is a myth?
Again, there are certain facts you're not allowed to talk about, and I don't really feel like getting into it today.
Thomas Sowell compared Barack Obama to Adolf Hitler. Do you like that analogy? That's the author you're quoting.
Yeah, again, Thomas Sowell is the Pearl of black people.
Do you think that's a fair
That's
analogy?
a quite one-sided way to write his whole work, but he wrote like 100 books.
Oh, to be fair, I think he's like a more like. I think if you had a conversation with him, I don't think you should go. Yeah, I kind of feel this way. Like, to be fair, I think he'd actually have numbers and shit like that. Unlike Pearl, it just means he has a tendency to go, "Oh, there's no real racism. It's all bollocks."
I'm just asking you to agree with that statement. Barack Obama is comparable to Adolf Hitler.
No.
Okay. See, it's not hard. It's not hard. That's awesome. That's easy to do. You also said George Washington was viewed from his slaves like a father. I guess that's part of what the part of what the myth, I guess, is that not all slave owners were evil. Some were father figures like George Washington. Did you say that?
That's great.
I don't remember. I think like if someone's a great and powerful man in history to the point like they're talking about him hundreds of years later, he didn't have any kids. But
Did he own slaves?
What?
Did he own slaves? George Washington.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, no romance me. I'm just saying.
No, it's actually interesting. He had a different, like, he inherited his slaves, and it wasn't as simple as he could have just like let them go, because the debt that's incurred on them, like, you can't just release them. And so his slaves actually, like, he had a really good relationship with them, and they considered him like a dad.
What's your source?
Wait, I want to see the brother's reactions. I want to see that guy's reaction. What did he say?
Thomas Sowell. So he's your guy. Thomas Sowell's the
I want to
man.
see that guy's
Thomas Sowell wrote a
reaction.
column
Like,
about
that's funny.
supporting segregation in public schools. George Washington.
I also like. I don't know who that first guy was, like the black guy that was speaking, but that's pretty good chat thing. Yeah, do you know slaves? Not a real man to me. It's like, okay, great. Just fuck you, pal. Like the way he did it, I like it.
Want me to apologize? Like, you want me to talk about every single one of this man's opinions?
No, I just want I just want to know what you think. Do you think racism was embellished? I mean, it's so easy. I mean, just say no.
I think okay. There was a time where I started to read accounts from actual slaves. So these were like in like and I can't really talk about this. Like, even if I talk about this now, they're going to clip it. They're going to say things I didn't say. But it's like I used to read actual slave accounts, and I was surprised how many didn't say bad things about their owners after they were free. And it's not to say like slavery was a horrible institution, but I can't talk about that fact without getting canceled. I can't say, hey, these slaves had a good relationship with their owners.
Because it's not true. Because it's just not true. It's not true. George Washington was not a father figure to his slaves.
Well, if you look up like I think it was Booker
47. Let's see, 47 of George Washington's slaves tried to escape. Would you try to escape if you loved your master?
maybe that one was wrong. I don't know. This was like a little bit on a podcast months ago. I don't really remember, but and I said I wasn't sure if it was Washington either in that interview.
Again, more proof. She just says shit. Like, she does just say shit. Like, that throws me a bit of a... This is how she kind of fucks herself over a little. Because if you just say things and you just say whatever pops in your head, sometimes you're going to say shit that's going to look really bad later, just by accident. And no, George Washington, actually, his slaves really loved him. And he couldn't get rid of him anyway. And they saw him like basically a father almost. And it's like, yeah, but she's doing a tip. She's just doing a pill. I don't actually think that was actually a racist thing. Bear in mind, half the people she has on the show are black. She was just doing a pill and just saying some shit. But then when it gets played back later, it looks really fucking bad. To be fair, I've got to give Paul some credit, right? I've got to give him some credit. The chutzpah, right? The amount of balls you need, right? To be in a room full of like 12 black men who are like, yeah, George Washington kept slaves, not a real man to me. No, actually, slavery wasn't actually that bad. I think a lot of people don't realise Washington was actually really nice. Yeah, like, that's a lot of balls. Even if I believe that, obviously I don't believe that. Even if I believe that, you wouldn't catch me in a million years in a room like that. Oh, yeah, okay. I just went, oh, no, yeah, you're right, what a dick. Like, I'm so scared they're going to attack me, just the whole room's going to, like, you just sit there. No, he's nice to his slaves, really. Like, that's some brave shit.
At some point, but
well, George Washington was
bringing up is I'm not even allowed to have this conversation without.
What do you mean not allowed?
That, but I mean, we're giving you the.
I mean, I got months of backlash for this. I'm now like you guys are kind of trying to do a gotcha moment.
No. I didn't know about the backlash.
Like, I'm not really.
I didn't know about the backlash. I promise I didn't.
I had months.
I just want to know what you think.
Like, I had months of people like it's like if I have this conversation, I had months of people calling my employees slaves. Like that's what they call like
that's horrible. Yeah, I disagree. That sucks.
Horrible.
But at the same time,
and like even the guy, and you know this because you watched the video of that guy. The reaction you just like you're acting oblivious, so I didn't know that, but you do know that because the reaction you just watched was my former co-host who insinuated that my employees were being colonized.
Oh, I didn't know that. I promise. I just wanted to get your take. Well, people say I just wanted to know what your thoughts are on this. That's all.
Yeah, I'm not like my channel isn't about slavery. That's like a fringe.
I know. I want to know about you.
But I'm asking like, why are you bringing this up when that's not really what my channel's about?
I can only ask you things about. This is interesting. I want to ask you about it. But I can only ask you things in a confined space?
You can, but you understand how that looks to me. It's like you're just trying to pick out every single.
Listen, Pearl. To be totally fair, you could just say I don't think slavery was embellished.
Like you were
like
just
that's
talking
super
about,
easy. That's a layup for most people.
I was quoting a book. That's the crazy part. I was quoting a book.
So do you
it's like
agree with his statement, though?
Do I think overall it was embellished? Some parts, sure.
There it is. Which parts?
Some parts.
No, please tell me which parts. Tell me.
I think that you can't. I think that certain slaves had good relationships with their owners. Not all, maybe not most, but I think some did.
And that just
and there are accounts of them saying this.
So some slaves had good relationships with their masters. Therefore, slavery was embellished.
You know how this is going to go for me. Like, I don't know why you're doing this. You know I can't have this conversation without them painting it a certain way.
Well, just own it then. Just do it. Just say what you want. You know what I mean? Just be red pilled about it. Who is they? I don't know who's they. Just your haters or someone?
The left.
The left.
Do they have parentheses around the they?
Like, I mean, you even came in, like, you researched, like, my family. Like, that's weird.
How's that weird? It's all public. It's stuff you talked about. You literally talked about it. It's called preparation, which you clearly done none of. Like, you literally do no preparation.
Paul doesn't need debate prep. Paul just comes on and says shit and says whatever pops in her head. And goes, no, I mean, I just like feel that really I don't think this is true. So what? To be fair, why the fuck would she even bother? Just come on and say whatever pops in her head. It's the easiest shit in the world.
And talk about. I didn't talk about.
Like an easy job, that actually. You just sit there and just say anything. You don't need to think. Don't need to worry. I'll just whatever pops into my head.
If my mom was the president of like the
where do we find that?
Find that on their website.
I looked it up. I said I googled who are your parents, and it popped right up.
Is that
they're famous? They're relatively famous.
I didn't send a private investigator.
On YouTube, there's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I didn't send a private investigator to your house. I just did a little bit of research.
Public information.
Like let me bring facts about your parents.
You knew you were coming to talk to me for weeks.
I've done that.
I know, but I thought we were talking about the issues, not like my family.
We didn't talk about your family.
Yeah, I mean, you were even implying earlier.
First of all, it is relevant that your mom is the president when you're talking about.
You didn't know any of the backlash I got.
Well, who cares? You said it. Just own it.
I'm asking. You didn't know any of the backlash I got.
I didn't know about it.
No idea, even though you got that from a video that my ex co-host made about me.
Right.
See, like this is dishonest. It's not honest.
But what's the problem? You're getting backlash for something that you think.
But I'm saying, so you're like.
Yeah, but she won't.
You're not.
The thing is, she won't disavow it, right? And I agree, these are short clips, right? Whatever. But she won't go. Well, no, obviously, of course, that's not what I think. So, well, then we assume that is what you think. Then, like.
You brought your parents up when you were talking about hiring people, didn't you?
I said, I think it's a bit.
You talk about your parents all the time. You talk about how your dad is rich. You did a tour of his whole barn with the bowling alley and fucking recreational stuff in it. Like, why am I not allowed to talk about it?
Like, you even just said that you knew. Like, because you got that clip from an like.
Okay, who cares?
Here to protect your reputation.
Yeah, I mean, who cares? Let's say I didn't know about it to the extent that it was such an issue for you, but let's just say it was. I mean,
I do have to go though because I have a show coming up. So.
Okay, let's just end on this note.
Mm-hmm.
Slavery was embellished because some masters had good relationships with their masters. Some slaves had good relationships with their masters.
All right.
But don't you see how easy it is to just say, I don't think it was embellished? I don't think it's a secret.
You guys act just like I've been preached.
Like, Pearl, I don't think it's a secret that some masters had good relationships with their slaves. I don't think that's a secret. There's been a whole
I really appreciate you having me on, but I'm going to go. Thank you.
George,
thank you.
Okay, I appreciate you. Okay.
Have
a good night.
She hung up.
She ran.
Whoa.
I just don't understand why you can't.
She was panicking at the end. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
First of all, I genuinely did not know that it was such a sore point for her. I mean, it is a crazy thing to say.
I mean, she gets backlash all the time for all the things that she says.
Yeah, to be honest, fair, I think she was shitting herself. She was going to get cancelled, and especially bear in mind again, like half the people she has on the show, like regularly, are like black people. So I could well imagine she didn't want to be implicated in the slavery justification shit. So career-wise, she just had to go. But
why is that one so off limits?
That I don't know.
I mean, I can guess because it's fucking insane. But
like I mean, yeah, that's it. But
I'm gonna let the children out of.
You know, I tried to nail her down on things as I do here, but ultimately,
chat, you're free.
Dude, I've been wondering what the fuck that noise is the whole time. I could not pay attention because I just heard crunching.
There's a lot.
Oh, what the fuck?
When the fuck did you get here?
Well,
who the fuck is that? Is that Brad just been eating crisps? I think we're done with this now. Fucking okay. I mean, like, yeah. Bill just basically like says any shit. Yeah, I mean, Pearl will basically just say anything, and comes on, and like whatever she's kind of thinking, whatever, just like whatever argument he makes. And to be fair, Ethan isn't the best debater. He doesn't make the best arguments, although he does have flashes of genius sometimes. Like you're like, yeah, he's not a good debater, and then he's quickly does a good question. Like, okay, but Pearl will just kind of sit there and she's like, yeah, I mean, I just don't think that really. And what about this case? Hey, no, your thing's an edge case, but what about when women fuck Drake? I mean. Right, and it's like it's like painful to argue with because she'll always go around in circles and she'll never concede anything and she'll never acknowledge things. But yeah, again, that is the easiest job in the world. You can just sit there and like no research, no anything, just comes into your head. Fuck it.